All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We are live. We are live. We said the last time we were on, we didn't know if we were going to be on today, but we were able to. We were traveling. We didn't know if we were going to be back in town at a decent time, but we did slide back in town, obviously, for enough time for us to get on for the Sunday Night Football game. So welcome in. Welcome in. It's good to be here for a typical, of course, we were able to stick to schedule, Chad. Hey, yo, we didn't know, how far we're going to push it into the start of the NBA week this week, but hey, don't forget, NBA starts this week, so we'll be here maybe even a little bit more than normal for the start of the NBA week. You'll just have to see. But we do have Falcons-Niners on in the background. And then since we were traveling, we were keeping an eye on the red zone, trying to follow along with some of the games. And we did get back in time to see a little bit of the, the end of some of these other games as well, too. Hey, yo, chat, we saw the Broncos-Giants might have been enough drama in the last just drive alone to be able to, we have to take a moment there. I don't know if we would have been able to handle a full day of football if it was like that, but we do have we will throw on some of these highlights and catch up to what's going on in the week 7 of the NFL as well. I guess maybe it's a chance to start, chat, because we do have commercial right now on Saturday Night Football game. So the Falcons, they had a quick drive to start. Hey, less than 2 minutes, but it does seem like they are getting the ball back. So we'll see if the take two is any better. Of course, Bijan versus McCaffrey. Is this a passing of the torch game? Hey, yo, chat. Bijan is taking I guess there is an all-purpose thing to their game, but I don't know if it, maybe for, other reasons, but I don't know is Bijan like the running back, is that a torch passing sort of situation? I guess if we're just kind of being the basic sort of the best running back in the league. But even still, I guess it's not that McCaffrey wouldn't have made the case, of course, but was he ever, I guess there were, he had the 2,000-yard season. There have been seasons where he has been obviously the number one running back, but there have been other good running backs in the mix. I guess him and Saquon, their careers kind of paralleling each other, of course, have, those have been two kind of legacy guys. And I guess Saquon with the Super Bowl as well, too, and he does have like a 2,000-yard season in the mix as well, so there are some historical sort of checkpoints that he hits that kind of match with McCaffrey, because McCaffrey's also, is that stats guy as well, too. So there is that thing that you would think from the yards and some of those numbers that he would have the advantage, but it could be close. But Bijan, I think, is a better runner than McCaffrey, or a higher upside runner than McCaffrey. But McCaffrey, of course, his ability in the receiving game, I would trust him a little bit. Like McCaffrey, of course, you could just play it like slot receiver if you needed to. And not to say that, Bijan's a good enough athlete, of course, and a dynamic enough in the, just a dynamic enough athlete out there running around that he can get open if he needs to. Pause. But I think McCaffrey would be a little bit more technically sound. Hey, yo, chat. Good technique for McCaffrey out there at receiver, running around. But, of course, his dad was a receiver as well, too. So there is, I'm sure that, his brothers are receivers. So, his versatility, I think the running back factor from it was just, he was probably the best athlete, and the ability to get the ball to a running back's a little bit different than a receiver. So you just line him up in the backfield, hand it off, and then if you need to, of course, you can mix him into the pass game and stuff like that. I guess we don't really, we didn't really see the McCaffrey high school tape, so we don't really know, how he started with different types of offenses being used around. But, of course, at Stanford, he was dynamic two-way as well, too, in the receiving game. But Falcons with the ball now starting at their own 20. Penix, we'll see if it's, I guess it would be more Bijan if they're able to get going as well, too. Mac Jones, as he sees the starting job from Brock Purdy, chat. It could be interesting, but, there could be some interesting quarterback sort of let's keep an eye on these situations for what's going forward. I don't even know which one to start with, but again, just kind of looking at the scores, kind of seeing what was going on. Hey, yo, Broncos-Giants might honestly be the one, chat, because the Giants were winning this game pretty comfortably for most of it. Again, just kind of following along. And then when we were able to sit down and watch, the final drive, Jackson Dart throws like 4 dropped interceptions in a row. And then on the 5th one, of course, there's the pass interference. They've driven to midfield at that point, or, a little pass. So when they're, when he's throwing that deep pass on that final, I guess, dropped interception, then did I say dropped incompletion the first time? If I did, I meant dropped interception. He threw like 4 dropped multiple just passes into coverage on the final drive. Multiple Broncos defenders should have been picked off several times, but finally he just keeps chugging it downfield, and it's like, okay, now they get the pass interference call. They're at the 1. They get the touchdown. They, of course, miss the extra points. The Broncos have the chance to go back down, get the field goal. They do, fortunately, so they end up getting the win. But it's like, okay, multiple chances to end the drive for the Giants. You can't just keep giving them life, and they just keep throwing the ball down the field. You know, the penalty is the thing that, you know, gives them the opportunity, that sets up the scoring play. But regardless, if you throw 4 or 5 deep passes in a row, you know, you're gonna get a penalty in there. So I'm trying to remember how they even keep the drive moving at the end, because the penalty, I think, was on a 4th down as well too. But it felt like he had multiple sets of downs where he was just chucking the ball into, and not just, you know, obviously, maybe on that last drive a little bit throughout the 4th quarter. He did end up having an interception later in the game that, you know, ultimately, again, with them losing, is, of course, not that the interception isn't costly, but, you know, is a sort of a cost him the game type of interception. Even though, I guess he did throw the pass that got the pass interference at the end. But you see his calmness is pretty impressive. And, you know, I guess I don't know if we've made the Caleb Williams comparison in the past, but hey, yo, if we haven't, chat, then it is what it is. If we have, you know, I hate to mention it again, but, and you know, you're like, wait a second, what's the Caleb Williams comparison? Well, I think it's sort of, I guess, it's not, maybe not a comparison. I guess it is comparing, but it's not like a draft. It's in the style of type comp. It's more of like a, you know, I guess, and you know, he has of course the projectability to extend those type of plays and to be creative outside of the pocket. But when you watch him throughout his NFL career, there are moments, of course, when he looks rushed and he looks like he's being hurried up and not necessarily continuing to read what's going on down the field, or, you know, just make the right move in terms of escaping the lane. And Dart is just constantly, you know, navigating over to the right spot and moving around in the pocket. And he does, you could see on the final drive as well, too, again, with him kind of checking down the field, he does like to roll out as well, too. And you get into the sort of, you know, his ability to make the reads versus the play, breaking down and all that stuff. Again, he is a rookie, so, you know, we're obviously just kind of looking for those good moments to shine through and just be like, oh, here's the stuff that we need to build on. But again, he is a guy that, and I know that, you know, between him and Scadaboo, there's been the posts about, you know, the CTE build up with the amount, just the fearlessness that these guys play with. Hey, yo. But for the most part, when he is behind the line of scrimmage, or I guess when he's not, again, seeking out contact as well, too, he is, I guess, doing a good job of avoiding it. Hey, yo, chat. But he is sneaky like that, where he does seem to escape pressure. And I guess there is the Broncos getting a sack there, shout out, in the red zone, which of course is, you know, clutch. They were able to step up a couple times like that. But Scadaboo off the screen, chat, hey, yo, gets in, of course, pause. He has been he's going to be like a fantasy MVP type guy this year, with him being like a legit starting running back. And they missed multiple extra points in this game, I guess, as well. So maybe this kicker is, you know, AO chat. We'll have to see what, maybe not just in the waiver wire on fantasy, if you know what I mean. But, you know, chat, I feel bad for the kicker. AO, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, shout out. I guess the Giants are starting to get to the point where they can put a little bit of points on the board. I don't know if, again, we consider them, of course, an elite offense, but they can keep these drives alive in a way. And there was a moment there, of course, when Dart was, you know, those first couple of games. And again, I guess it's like a moment, you know, it's only been a handful of games for him. But even those first two were just like so limited in what he was doing with the passes and just quick reads and really not even giving him a chance to become that. But as the confidence, of course, is increasing, you know, we can see their offense improving as well, too. I guess here, we can double check what their performance has been over the last couple of games here. Just double checking the point totals as well, too. And I guess, you know, I don't know if we dig into the yards and see if they're moving and not you know, maybe finishing drives as well, too. That's the next step. But yeah, they did score, I guess, you know, 34 against Philly in that third. I guess, yeah, it has been 10 days since they played as well, too. So a little bit. But, and 14 against the Saints, I guess, when did Jackson, it was the Chargers game, was his first game. So yeah, I guess the first two, hey, yo, chat. And then the Eagles game was the game they scored 34. But for some reason, I guess, 10 days ago, maybe I'm thinking there's another game in there as well. I guess, we saw him in the Kansas City game a little bit, and maybe just the starting from just like, okay, we're going to bring him in to run the ball a couple of times. I don't know. But yeah, I guess, the last couple of games anyways, 300 plus total yards. I don't know if there's some garbage time in there in the Saints. Did the Saints pull away though in the fourth quarter? Are we going to go back and watch Rattler versus Dart Chat? Hey, you talk to us. Oh, second quarter. 13-point performance by the Saints in the second. There might have been like a dart interception in there or something. Offense. The offense had 5 turnovers in that game. So, a tough performance, but they were, moving. I guess, outside of the Cowboys game where they had 500 yards and Russ was just, throwing all over the field. The last great Russell Wilson game, chat. I don't know, but it may be a fun one on the Pluto in the offseason where it's like, oh yeah, week 2, Dallas at New York. It's not going to be entertaining to rewatch some of that game. Offensive wise, one of the more high-powered games, of course, we've gotten this year, and just for, again, the yardage, guys moving up and down the field. But there is a consistency that is starting to, happen with this team as well too. So I don't know. Here we go back and look at their total yards today if they hit that 300-yard mark. But 32 points as well too, and maybe the Philly defense, maybe the Denver defense. I'm sure there's, eyebrows raised both ways after performances like that. You're still looking at the Giants offense as like, maybe, we need to step up a little bit more against that. But still, those are good personnel on defenses. Those are playmakers in the front seven, secondary for both guys as well too. Obviously with Surtain leading the way in Denver, name value wise, his performances are starting to trend the right direction as well too. But there is again, his confidence is growing and they're starting to play better as well too. So I guess, yeah, he did have 283 on the day as well, 4 sacks. So, that goes to him kind of, and 15 for 33, he's a little still, I guess, inconsistent, but Bo Nix 27 for 50. Holy cow, chat. Hey, 2 rushing touchdowns. So he was, and 4 touchdowns overall. It does go into the stats as again, if you post on the graphic, total yardage and touchdowns, it's not bad. And his rushing was efficient as well. So ultimately, chargeback. Hey, chat, they scored all their points in the fourth quarter. Oh man. Hey, again, we're kind of just following along on the red zone, getting back into town during the late window. But geez, I didn't realize they scored a ball in the fourth quarter. So yeah, I don't even know if this is a good performance by the Broncos or something to take away. Is this the quarter where Bo Nix finally figured it out? Because maybe he is just kind of a gutsy guy like this, and I don't know if this is more of a, he continues to get better, of course, each season. When we get, I guess, is Bo Nix already 27? I don't know. Is Bo Nix already as old as Baker? But when he gets to Baker's age, maybe he does kind of 25. So he's 3 years away from, like, is it Baker like 28 or 29? Hey, chap. I mean, shout out. So, maybe in a couple years, as the consistency is there a little bit more, play to play, and you can kind of combine that with the end of the game gutsiness. Because, again, maybe just, of course, Philly getting back on track a little bit today against the Vikings. But they have, again, maybe they're a little bit interested in they're just looking at their team a little bit after the last couple of games against both these teams, I guess. But, he has played better at the end of both of those games. The prevent stuff, the Giants, of course, giving this one up is going to be disastrous as well, too. I know, it's not like they, didn't score points in the fourth. They did put up 13, but still, to give up 33 is tough. But, yeah, shout out, again, to the gutsiness and to picking up the wins, 5-2. Still keeps them competitive in the divisional race. And it does feel kind of like who they are. And, again, it's like Tampa this year, I guess, a little bit, where I say, in the future, is he going to get there? But, again, Tampa, you feel better about the way that they play their games, or you just trust Baker more as well, too, to have those clutch moments versus Bo Nix having just a chaotic game. So I guess, we'd have to go completions and attempts for the fourth quarter and see what he was in this one. Oh, chat, Penix just flipping it over. Nobody's incomplete. Hey, first quarter. Winding down here. It is what it is. But we got to pay attention, chat. But Scadaboo, I guess what was the receiving touchdown. So 3 for 34. Did find the end zone today. 16 for 60. But again, from a fantasy standpoint, he's getting the looks, getting the carries. Tracy has had some buzz in the past, and I don't know who else they have on the roster exactly. I guess Singletary for sure, but because he also got carries. But, of course, we all know that his energy has definitely, Scadaboo's energy has definitely taken over. So that's not surprising. But, again, of course, the production is there. It's not just all vibes as well, too. And the impact is, carrying this offense a little bit with what him and Dart are, of course, with this turnaround. But, yeah, from a win standpoint, shout out to Denver for at least, barely getting there. Home team as well too. So getting one of those home wins is gonna be important. But that's the hope going forward, is that Bo Nix can just dial it in, because it happened once. There's just opportunities throughout the game where Sutton's a good receiver, Chad, and he's getting open time and time again, and Bo Nix just not quite finding him down the field consistently enough throughout the course of the games. Again, to think that this team is, if you're going playoff run as well too, the consistency for them to win those multiple games in a row. And I know that, are we going to put them in the Super Bowl contender category? Ayo, chat. I don't know if we, calling out Bill Simmons, ayo, for, I don't know, call him out, ayo, chat, for, I don't know, losing Russillo or for his Broncos takes. But, I don't know if the Broncos, of course, they're, like we're saying, there is some Super Bowl roster pieces in place. And I don't know, again, looking defense is a little bit a step less than we thought, but still pass rush has been, had some moments, as Benito's definitely been there as well too. But again, the consistency from the quarterback spot for 3 or 4 playoff wins in a row is still not quite, at full confidence level at this point. And they did have that crazy touchdown as well too, off the ricochet. So that is, 14 kind of crazy points that the Giants do score. And, again, I don't know if we say that we can't not give them credit for it, because I guess in some ways, they are still making plays, even if it is kind of a funkier style team. It's like, okay, these aren't obviously a penalty. You're relying on a pass interference penalty to go deep and pausing a bobbled around type of pass. That's just going to be a once a season type of moment. But they do seem to kind of, have those type of things happen as well too. But, again, the penalty as well, it's like the Broncos have had those, the Colts game is obviously the number one example for penalty sort of swinging the outcome of a game this year, because the Colts get the retry on the field goal after missing and then make it with a little bit of a closer distance. And probably just with the retry as well too. It definitely, the 5 yards definitely helped. I mean, it was the combination of both. You get the extra yardage and just the general retry. But yeah, I mean, that was a couple of games potentially that have been cost by penalty. So again, it hasn't been pretty, but at least they're getting wins at this point. And it's kind of the story for both college and NFL at this point in the season, where, I don't know if saying this in a good or a bad way, but nobody has really stood out like crazy. Ayo. And I know that Pavia for college is starting to get buzz right now, and we've seen different guys have momentum throughout the course of the year. But I mean, we're at the point in the year now where we're kind of just like, okay, I don't know if we're getting to the halfway point. We know that once we start to get second half of October, November, now we really have to start taking the season a little bit more seriously for who we're going to consider the contenders, what playoff runs are going to look like maybe. And there's that interception late by Jackson Dart with just under 5 minutes left. Just a little, pass into the middle of the field, not seeing the linebacker drop out, rookie mistake. You don't always want your guy to take the sack, and you do have the tight end. Yeah, obviously running there. You think he's open. You're not seeing the linebacker drifting back into coverage, who was up at the line of scrimmage initially at the snap. But still, I know with the big lead at that point, not at that point, but over the course of the game, I guess you still got 10 on the board. You could punt it away, get a stop, play a little bit of a field goal, type, or a field position type game at that point, and then hopefully the clock runs out. If you're New York on the Broncos, so maybe those are just those. Maybe it's like little coaching moments. Again, I don't even know what smart NFL people would say the right move is there. Obviously, not throwing an interception is ideal, but it's like is taking the sack, up 10 with less than 5 minutes left, the worst thing in the world. I don't know, because the clock is still going to run as well too at that point. But again, a rookie type mistake for Jackson Dart. Honestly, veteran type mistake as well too. It's not to say that most of the veterans in the league wouldn't do something like that at this point. But I don't know if we go to I guess maybe we could watch the highlights for the Indy game, because the Chargers did play a little bit better in the second half. They were trying to make it interesting there, but just couldn't quite. And I think that says something about Indy as well too. I don't know if anything's like a hot take at this point with the way they've played and their record being obviously the best in the league. But still, again, if we're going confidence levels, the rankings and the records might be a little bit different. But 3rd and 4 for Atlanta, chat. And Penix, speaking of taking the sack, he gets dropped at the Falcons still in field goal range. Salah, shout out, getting fired up. Chat, he sees another head coaching opportunity. Salah back to the Jets. Look out Aaron Glenn. But can they trade head coach for defensive coordinator? Because Aaron Glenn in San Francisco, that could actually be kind of fun. I don't know if, it does, he's getting a little bit of a, I can't say that there's revisionist history, obviously, on his Lions tenure. But because the coaching thing has been a little bit of a tough start with that Jets team, it is, and at least Johnson, again, speaking of putting together wins, at least he's starting to, take care of some of these teams that they are definitely better than. And I don't know if it's been a full, Caleb Williams renaissance, the way that the way that maybe optimistic, Caleb Williams / Bears fans would hope that the Ben Johnson system would be able to create, turn him into that type of quarterback. But again, they are still being able to put together a winning formula. So he is still, there's still good vibes around him as a head coach a little bit. But if Aaron Glenn was back or not back on the Niners, but if he was on the Niners, that could be a fun move. So, I guess a lot of their personnel is hurt now. Shout out Fred. What I say, they're good personnel, but really it's just Fred Warner. So if Fred Warner's not out there, then it is what it is. Maybe we're not as high on the defense. But, they're holding up tonight. They got pressure on Penix. Falcons on the road, chat. It's definitely a little bit of a contrast. And is the last time we saw him on the road in that Panthers game. When they put up 0 points and got worked by Carolina. Now, maybe actually we go to the Carolina highlights next, chat. Probably. And focus on that game, because the Colts game was on the red zone a little bit. And I guess, chat, were we a little bit more tuned in when they were, going to the Colts game? Maybe. It is what it is. But the Carolina performance today was, and again, against the Jets, maybe not the most impressive win, but a good time in the schedule for sure. And, again, speaking of stringing wins together, they have definitely accomplished that as well, too. So here, let's watch, because I guess, we could tap out of these highlights quick. I don't know how much. Well, there was a little bit of a QB change today, and I don't, intentional, unintentional, but regardless, it did happen. So I don't know. We watched the highlights. I don't know if we need to watch the highlights necessarily to, see the difference there, but still, maybe we do it anyways. Pause. But let's see here. Are they 3-2? So yeah, they lost at home to Tampa on opening night. Won against Minnesota on the road. So that was McCarthy. That was Monday night. I don't know what that game looks like looking backwards as well too. But then, lost to Carolina on the road in Carolina. And then I guess had a bye week 5. So it's been 3 weeks since they've been on the road now at San Francisco. Moving the ball a little bit there, getting into scoring range. But we'll see if it is, this, again, a little bit of a trend here as we're seeing. And they do have, basically all their road games are back-to-back as well, too. So I don't think every team's schedule is set up like that. But that feels a little unique where you're making trips. I don't know if that's extra convenient or not, but at New England, at Indy, that doesn't seem ideal. How many times do the Colts go back-to-back on the road? Pause. They go I guess, only 2 times for the year. So, yeah, at Tennessee, at L.A., and they won at Tennessee and lost at L.A. So, yeah, their one loss is a pretty good trip there. Not quite cross-country, but getting close. And then they go week 14, 15, Jacksonville to Seattle. So that could be tough, chat. At Seattle, we know Seattle is looking pretty good. Did Seattle even play today? Were they just so dominant that it didn't even matter? I think they might have. But maybe they were maybe they were on bye. Jason, they play tomorrow, Chad. They play Houston. So that'll be another good test as well, too. Now, I'd say that Houston, is like a test level team. But I guess if they go out there and really prove that they're another level above Houston, could say something about both teams. But, again, point proven with that performance. So tomorrow, tomorrow's going to be a good day of football. Probably better than today, honestly. Not to say that there wasn't, again, drama in some of the games. But I wouldn't say it was the most well-played day of football, except for maybe one performance that, of course, obviously we'll mention here in a second. But Chad, I guess, do we even watch the field highlights? Okay, at this point, it's second quarter in the highlights. It's 13 minutes left in the second quarter, and Fields that's the moment he took the slide as well too. So I guess let's see. It's just his final stats for the game. It might have been this. We can confirm here if we look it up. So was that the moment that they subbed him out of the game? Wait, Tyrod Taylor number 2. Yeah, what? Fields number 7. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, vicious hit. Concussion protocol alone, obviously, for a player's safety. If that was, I guess, we know how it works, Chad. If it was Josh Allen or Lamar, would the player have missed a quarter? Probably not. He's back there in the second half, ready to go, shake it off. But that type of moment in an NFL game, maybe the concussion protocol is probably obviously the safest thing to go ahead and have an effect there. So Tyrod Taylor playing the rest of the game would make sense anyways. But also, again, I was a little surprised that Fields is in. You want to give the guy maybe the guy with the more upside, of course, the opportunity to actually get there as a player. And I don't know, the support system, maybe you make excuses. Oh, no, there we go. Fields is back in the game. So, because I could say, when on the red zone they were announcing that he was officially out, they didn't say it was with the concussion protocol. So they said it was with a shoulder. But again, maybe I was assuming that they were just saying that it, up in pause, up in that it was because of that hit. Maybe not ruling a concussion, but the shoulder was still a part of that moment. But we know that he had a pretty tough game in London overseas. We don't know if the travel. I don't. Again, we're gonna sit here and make excuses. It is what it is. But Tyrod as a down the field, and I think the other thing as well too is we thought that there would be a bit of an identity with the run game element. With having Fields and Breece Hall, and maybe there's a little bit of a power type of team, and at least they have a thing offensively that they can rely on to try to move the football if things are not working out. But it doesn't seem like the run game is, and maybe that's coaching as well too. It doesn't really seem like the offense is focused on making that happen. Like, it is a lot of Fields dropping back and trying to be in the pocket and be a quarterback. And again, I get trying to see his upside there and try to, have it, again, see what you have as a potential for franchise guys. Well, too, I guess we'll just say it like that. But again, Fields is also a little bit of a different part in his career. He's had some starts, he's been in a couple teams. So it's not like, again, he's their first round draft pick necessarily. But if they're going to be a drop back team like this, Tyrod Taylor's just a better drop back passer. And, Chet! Matt Jones with the bobble interception. Dewan Jennings right through his arms. Hey, who got the pick for Atlanta? One of the linebackers. Is that Ellis, chat? Hey, but Jennings right off the elbows, chat. We were saying Mac Jones with the interception, but yeah, no, I guess right off the hands. Good pass. There's definitely some Falcons defenders around there, but it's right on the receiver. Yeah, Ellis, chat. Shout out. Gets the turnover. So Falcons going to get in good field position. And creating a turnover on the road, too, is definitely going to help, the potential that their offense struggles. But Bryce Young, I guess we didn't see the Bryce Young stats for the day here, so let's check those out as well, too, I guess, along with the field stats. Because Carolina only put up 13, so, 0 in the fourth, only 3 in the third, kind of slowing down there. in the second half. Yeah, he only finished 15 for 25, 138 and a touchdown. So 10 minutes into the third, 13 for 21, 128 and a touchdown. So they probably really go into protect the ball mode at this point. 36 carries. Again, we know that they're, speaking of a power run team, like that's kind of what Carolina has become. But like Fields in Carolina would be interesting. And I don't know at this point, maybe that says something about Bryce Young. Again, I think we go like PFF. There's more than 32 spots to rank. So just because Bryce Young is on the ranking over Fields doesn't mean he's still, at the level that we need him to be at, totally. But still, there is now at least levels that he's climbing where it's like, okay, there are still, there are guys in the league that I would take Bryce Young over at that point. So shout out, we're pro a lot of these quarterbacks. We're pro Fields. We're pro everybody, chat. But, Bryce Young, he's climbing it's his turn. He's climbing his ladder. It's his opportunity. Pause. But, and I guess Tyrod Taylor with 2 turnovers as well today, too. 2 picks. So that's not great. 10 for 22. Hey, Fields with a better completion percentage than Tyrod Taylor is definitely not the thing that you want to see there when Fields is sitting at 50%. But, yeah, I guess, and we're not even registering the fact that Dalton actually played a little bit in the fourth quarter. Hey, you go up 13-0. You go up 13-3 on the Jets, and you're like, we put in the backup. We put in Bryce. Did Bryce Young get hurt in this game? Do we have to search up Bryce Young here and just see real quick if there was... Oh, chat, there was an injury. Oh, no. Oh, chat. Again, speaking of the Bryce Young levels to climb, I know that you don't want an injury to maybe be this type of moment. But if you're the Panthers and you're going, oh, no. Again, that says something about at least the command of something that Bryce Young has right now. Even though it hasn't, he's not one of the top stats quarterbacks in the league, or, I'm not trying to say that disrespectfully, because again, he's having a great run right now. They're winning 3 games in a row, and he's definitely turning this thing around. And like I'm saying, if they're losing him here, this is a potentially, do we dare say, chat, Bryce Young is a playoff shifting type. Could that be a playoff shifting type injury? I know, I guess, we'll have to see Andy Dalton. He looks good against the Jets early on. Speaking of looking good, I guess 4 for 7. Speaking of completion percentage, if we're making fun. I guess he also had better completion percentage than Bryce Young. Hey, do we have to be fair here? But, regardless, it does seem like Bryce Young's ability on some of those bootlegs and, he's not running down the field. But at least he could be a little bit more mobile than Dalton. So maybe Dalton goes into that Flacco kind of territory where he's just making quick reads. But, hey, chat, 3rd and 5, the Jets send the blitz. 13-3 with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I guess they didn't show the injury replay here. Maybe it's not something we want to see. But so I guess we should probably, see if they're just saying, are they saying concerning to get us into the article, chat? Clickbait? Or again, if we actually pull up the highlight, would we be looking away? Let's see what it says. With win over the Jets in the rear view, Panthers can look ahead. Not only do they have the Bills, not only do the Bills loom, but Bryce Young's health is now concerned after suffering an ankle injury in the third quarter. Third-year QB left and did not return. This is moving forward. It just dumps all over the Jets. Pause. Let's see. Unfortunately, Bryce Young's status remains up in the air. Hurt his ankle trying to avoid a sack. Young missed 1 game due to injury in his NFL career. It's true. He has, for a guy that, and that is also true, chat. For a guy that has been, or a guy that was, with, and maybe still is, with the size stuff and pause, that's probably still going to maybe be brought in as a factor. But he has been pretty durable as well, too, for the most part. They have, like we've looked at in previous weeks, a pretty decent offensive line. So, they've managed to maybe keep him kind of protected as well, too. Oh, Chet, yeah, J.C. Horn on the outside one-on-one with a good interception, taking it away from the receiver. And maybe we want Tyrod Taylor again for the fantasy standpoint. I don't know. In course of 3 quarters, is he going to be great? But maybe the garbage time for Tyrod Taylor is a higher level than Fields. I don't know, chat. I don't. The throw over the middle of the field as well too. They're getting risky. He's taking shots, but still there was an opportunity there. So Dalton was in a quarter 3 for 6 for 27, and then he threw a lob up to Legette with 90 seconds left that got to go, but it was definitely underthrown for sure. So not to again say that, is Bryce Young airing it out down the field like crazy, but that is a big loss in the NFC. The Panthers are turning it around. The schedule will be favorable this year because they were not the strongest team last year, of course. So it wouldn't be shocking for them to be, around that 500 range and maybe stumbling into an NFC playoff picture at this point. And here, I guess 3-3 going into the week, they'll be 4-4. So let's see if we can kind of update the playoff picture in our mind here in the NFC real quick, because PFF wouldn't quite have it locked in. And Tampa, of course, plays tomorrow, like we were saying, along with Detroit. Ayo, Chet, did Green Bay win? Yeah, they did win that game. Ayo, we had to double check. That was another one. Again, speaking of weird drama and stuff, kind of a crazy game with Brissett. And speaking of the quarterback stuff, Chat. Ayo, another one to keep an eye on. But yeah, Philly, of course, goes to 5-2. The Rams go to 5-2. Seattle plays tomorrow. San Francisco and Atlanta both playing right now. So Atlanta could go to 4-2. San Francisco could go to 4-3. Minnesota 3-3. Chicago 4-2. The Commanders 3-4. And the Panthers 4-3. Hey, yo. So maybe we won't quite be able to keep this in our mind as good as we thought. But we know Minnesota will drop below them at this point with the loss. Chicago gets the win. Atlanta and San Francisco are both undecided. So both these teams will have a better win percentage because of Atlanta's bye week. They'll only have the 2 losses in there. But the Carolina does have the tiebreaker as well, too, at this point, I guess, if that were to be a factor. So, again, the Commanders, speaking of QB injuries, Jaden Daniels is another one. So maybe this was a tough week for that sort of reality where maybe some of these teams start to, maybe the Commanders as a team, we're not saying fully, are they a disastrous team or whatever. There's still some good pieces, and if Jaden Daniels was healthy, that could be a really feisty team in the NFC with a lot of veterans, like it was last year, and, having some good rookies there, obviously bringing in McCroskey, bringing in Bill, the running back, and Debo, not a rookie, I guess, but, a veteran that they brought in as well, too, to help with the offense has definitely been a good pickup this year. But, yeah, with at least some of these teams picking up wins and with this good schedules ahead, maybe the path is starting to shape up a little bit. But even if Seattle loses tomorrow against Houston, that's an interesting one because that's AFC, NFC, for tiebreaker stuff. Maybe I don't know how that important that game would be, where the AFC record against AFC opponents, how many levels is that down in the tiebreak type stuff. But it wouldn't be a team collecting a win, in the NFC and messing with the records, I guess, if we're talking Carolina. So they would have the same record of Seattle if Seattle were to lose. And again, maybe that would bump Seattle down a rung, not to have the same record as Carolina, but if they lost to Tennessee or to the Texans, I guess, maybe the Texans second half of the year could be a turnaround team if we start those narratives. They win. We're already thinking Monday night storylines as well too. Cowboys 3-1. They do have, I guess, the tie for the win percentage is tough because, it is not a win. So it's not a loss, but still, it doesn't really, still kind of tough. Dings you a little bit. But, I guess, Carolina would be with them as well, too. And Dak in that offense, as long as, obviously, they have the veteran leadership there, then they can be competitive in every game. And, got a good tie-break type win against the Commanders for them as well too today. But yeah, speaking of Carolina's that win streak, I wanted to see even like when the last time they would have won 3 games has been. Again, shout out to Bryce Young. We're not trying to look back and be like, oh yeah, prove him wrong, why this win streak is whatever, blah blah blah. It's just, again, the timeline of maybe this thing turning around and becoming competitive football. 2 out of 3 in last year, I guess they won their last 2 out of 3, both of those in overtime. I guess they won all 3 of their games in overtime. So this is the first time that they're winning in regulation. I feel like we might have pointed that out. Oh, there we go. They beat the Saints in regulation by 1 point. Yeah, we've obviously looked at this before. The Raiders, because this run sounds familiar. So 2 wins in a row, and then a bye week, and then Kansas City. So they probably would have lost that game anyways, but I guess it was close. So they probably needed the bye week to, again, maybe refresh, hang in there a little bit. But, yeah, that is a pretty good run. I don't know if that run is better than winning 3, but, that's right there as well, too. But I guess, timing in the season as well. You have more losses under your belt at that point, so it's a little bit of a different timing. And then 2 wins in general. I guess I don't even know why we looked. For 2023, they wouldn't even have won 3 games in a row that year. 7-10 in 2022, and they didn't even win 2 in a row that year. Did they win 7 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hey, yo, Chad, it is possible. I guess did they make the playoffs? 7 and 10, probably not. Yeah, it does look like they missed. Matt Rule 1 and 4. Oh, that's the Steve Wilkes turnaround year. And then 5 and 12 with Matt Rule. Oh, 3 in a row. Is this the start of the Matt Rule era, chat? Was the last time they won 3 in a row 2021? Hey, yo, and it's 2025, chat. Check your watches. It's been a couple of years since the Carolina Panthers have, had this much success week to week. And then 3 in a row early on in 2020 as well, too. So hopefully this is not the trend, chat, that we've, from the last couple of Carolina seasons. Matt Rule, Dave Canellis is the new Matt Rule. We're thinking it's all turned around, pause, and all of a sudden the rest of the season trends a different direction. So again, do they have a different excuse this year because Bryce Young did get hurt? And that definitely could play a factor. You had Bridgewater in 2020, so that's not necessarily long-term QB building back then. And then Darnold. You had Darnold in 2021. Hey, yo, Newton started 0-5, and then I guess I don't remember if he got hurt or something, or they just, moved a different direction at that point. But Darnold, or maybe Newton came in at the end of the season. Pause, I don't remember. But Darnold, 4 and 7 that year, 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So, again, maybe speaks more to the Carolina system or just the timing of his career. He needed a confidence reset in San Francisco or Minnesota or wherever he actually, ended up getting that boost. Obviously, the performances resulted in good seasons in Minnesota, but maybe the San Francisco run was good for, him as well, too, in revitalizing his career. But, 2022 would have been the rookie Bryce Young year at this point. Oh, Baker, chat! Hey, yo, then they had Baker at 1 and 5 as well, too. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So, and DJ Moore is up to for McCaffrey. So it's not like, I know that, again, when Baker was on practice squad, we give the team a hard time, pause, and it's, fair for having those guys pass through your team and not have the same performances in some ways, obviously that they do for some of the other teams. But regardless, again, there is some pieces there to work with, and it's not like the guys were having these incredible stats, but just not quite winning some games or whatever. Again, we go back where 3 of those Baker picks, like Mac Jones picks, off the hands of the defenders, and it's like, oh, actually, it would have been this. His stats would have looked this way. Those are specifics. I guess we don't remember, but still, I guess there is like 5-10% non-credit or credit for Carolina for trying to find a solution at quarterback and not necessarily, sticking with Baker Mayfield for 3 years after that. Because, again, it allowed him to move on and find the right place for him to be able to turn his career around as well, too. And then, I guess the 2-15 year would have been the first year with Bryce Young. Oh, that's right, Frank Reich, chat. Hey, yo, shout out Frank Reich. I mean, he had a decent Colts run. It looked like he could be it looked like we could accomplish maybe a little bit more than we did there for a second. But 1 and 10, that Carolina run was pretty tough. So that could go to the whole Bryce Young thing as well, too, where I know that Trevor Lawrence, he did have a tough game in London today for their season. The Rams being one of the better opponents that they played as well, too. But the Kansas City win still looks pretty good as well, too. That's kind of in the midst of this Kansas City turnaround as well, too. So maybe that's not one looking back going. And maybe, if Kansas City rips off like 5 in a row here, then it's like, oh, that Jacksonville one was still them just right before the turnaround or whatever. Again, we'll actually see how it plays out. But just that move on from Meyer and the next guy, and then now all of a sudden, maybe is Liam Cohen figuring some stuff out. That's an interesting one to go back. We'll have to see some of the play calling stuff for that, chat. He is, seems like there's some of the aggressive moments get him in trouble early. And, maybe he just needs to be a little bit more selective and timely with that type of stuff. But, hey, yo, chat, 5 minutes left in the half here. And Atlanta is up 3-0. I guess, the half is moving by. But we're not missing much in terms of scoring offense. I guess there's, we caught the interception stuff caught our attention. Okay, McCaffrey kind of darts upfield. I feel like we're looking over if exciting things happen. But maybe for the most part, there just haven't been exciting things. So, yeah, I don't know if Mac Jones and Penix was the most anticipated Sunday night matchup, but, yeah, maybe preseason. I don't, going into this game, this week, I don't know. But it hasn't necessarily over-delivered at this point, or the run games as well, too. Ayo. But there's Herbert on our highlight rewatches in the second half, starting off with a touchdown drive. So, yeah, they were down 20, I guess. What did they end up losing the game by? We got, 14, so they closed it by 6 points in the second half. But, again, Indy, I think that was the most impressive part about today. Again, looking week to week now, the performances are starting to pile up. And when we were out of town this weekend, we were talking to the guys we were with. Ayo, shout out Billy Buckets, shout out the champ. And I was asking him at one point, like, would they be surprised if the Colts won the Super Bowl this year? And that was before the Colts game as well, too. So maybe, even another performance like this would continue to, affect their opinion. I'm sure if the Colts finished the regular season 14-2, and it's just like, okay, they scored 35 points every week, then maybe, we revisit the question with the friends, and it's like, yeah, okay, at this point, maybe we would be a little less surprised. But I wanted to see, obviously just to check in, see where we were at with that confidence level, because I still am a little bit confused as well, too, as where to feel on this team. Pause, because, because Daniel Jones is one of those guys, Chad, that we just still don't know what the playoff thing is going to be with him at this point. And, obviously, like we're saying, the Darnold aspect of it, obviously he had sort of that playoff moment last year of not having the greatest game after having a pretty, high-level regular season for what we had seen in the past with his career. But the consistency around, and I guess the Vikings were very similar, explosive offense, great personnel as well too. And, offensively, Jefferson, obviously, and defensively, was Hunter still there that year, Chad? I guess I don't remember the exact roster that they had. And I don't know if it was as good of a defense as it is right now. Though, Flores is still scheming up stuff back then, I believe. But I guess AO was last year. We're talking like it was crazy. A couple seasons ago. But I guess was Hunter, they traded him 2 years ago? Or traded, I guess I don't remember exactly when they traded him, but whatever. But, they was still a highly talented team. But, again, it just still didn't have quite the moment. So I think that, as a fan, early on we were saying that in the first couple of good regular season performances, it's like, is that going to be what this season is? Where the team is just going to be really consistent over the course of the regular season and not quite have that playoff achievement, to match that regular season performance. But maybe the difference is the rest of the landscape, like we're saying, hasn't quite had the people emerge from the field the same type of way. And actually, again, if we're looking at it and being honest, like Indy is one of those teams that is starting to separate themselves a little bit now in terms of how good they've been. And I guess here we'll double check and just see how this does kind of match the Vikings season, because they might have even had a better win streak in this season as well too. They did lose they lost to the Rams, right? A couple times there because they lost in the playoffs as well. So I guess that's this year at 3-2. Last year, lost in the Rams in the playoffs, 27-9. And lost to Detroit. So they did lose back-to-back week 18, which was the one that messed with the playoff standings, and then lost to the Rams in the wild card game. And they did lose back-to-back. Oh, yeah, that's right, against Detroit and LA. In week 7 and 8. So that's what we're thinking of, the back-to-back. Pause. But it was Detroit, LA, week 7 and 8, and then Detroit, LA again in week 18 in the wild card. So I don't know if we go back and look at the level of every opponent that they played. And again, the Colts don't have the most difficult schedule this year as well, too. But this is a game where they handled business. And again, the Chargers were trying to make it interesting. There's a world where it's like, okay, is Herbert just going to have a crazy performance and just try to carry this team by himself back into this game? And, is Herbert going to all of a sudden just be back in the MVP conversation? The Chargers would be 4-2 at that point. And with the team crazy depleted. And you see, I guess, Minnesota, 28, 23, 34, 31, 23, 29, 20, 21, 12, 23, 30. I guess, it is a little bit, just a smidge under what the Colts offense has done this year. I guess for the year, what were they at points per game? Ninth in the NFL, 25.4. Watch this be higher than what the Colts have this year. It is what it is. But again, just kind of, it feels like we've been 30 plus a couple more times. So let's just double check here and see. 32.3. And yeah, first in the NFL. And fourth in defense, 19.9. So I don't know if that bears out in like the yardage stuff. Again, if we're really starting to dive into it. But there's a turnovers are being created. That was kind of the Minnesota thing as well too. You know, they were able to create those game-changing plays. And you know, Herbert did have a couple of a couple interceptions in this one as well. But 40 points, 20 against LA, you know, on the road. That's going to be a tough one for people to think about, you know, Stafford versus Jones. But then 40 versus the Raiders and 31 versus Arizona. Yeah, I guess that was close as well too. But again, the offense has been consistent over the last couple of this entire season, the most consistent in the league. And outside of the fact that, you know, the Chiefs are starting to turn it around and the Bills still are, you know, with Josh Allen stuff, considered a top level team. Like, there's just nobody else in the AFC that is playing well enough week to week to, you know, I wouldn't say not to be considered a threat to Indy, because again, it's not like we're staring at the Colts as being an all-time great team. I guess we'll continue. How many points is 32.2? You know, that might be up there a little bit. I guess I'm not going to deny it. Hey, yo, chat. But regardless, you know, for a team to be able to have a good performance against this team in one playoff game and knock them out and, you know, end their hopes, you know, again, we're not saying that we expect them to go wipe through the playoffs, but is any one team, you know, individually just scary to play against? Maybe the personnel, you know, with some of the guys again on Denver, you know, KC because of the legacy and just Josh Allen. But, you know, there really wouldn't be anybody else. You know, Herbert would have been one of those guys as well too. Just like, could Herbert individually have a crazy enough game to be able to get a win on just an individual night? Yes, and you know, they kind of took care of business in that game. And again, when he was trying to make the return, you know, he had a turnover, of course, that was costly as well too, a couple. But offensively with Taylor and the run game, there was a closeout effect in this one that was, you know, really encouraging as well too, and maybe a little bit better than, again, obviously against Arizona. And maybe Arizona's even feistier with Brissett than we're giving him credit for, you know, if we're doing some football math now. I don't know, football math, you know, that means now we're starting to, you know, maybe, of course, walk it back a little bit on the Packers, pause. But the Cardinals, you know, they may be a little bit feistier week to week as well too. But regardless, the ability to continue to just keep this games, you know, arm length away was what was encouraging and impressive about this one. So I don't know what the next one to go into half is. Do we go the London game, chat? Here, let's fire up the London game and go the highlights here and go Rams versus Jags. This one was, you know, speaking of foot on the gas, chat, pause. This was dominant over pretty quickly, you know, second half, third quarter. The Rams were definitely taking care of business, up 3 scores. No Puka Nacua as well too, which, you know, again, we'll see the Jaguars, how competitive that is of an opponent. They are 4-2. They have created a lot of turnovers and chaos in games to allow them to, you know, be in these winning spots. But with no Nacua, you're just kind of worried that is the Rams offense going to be at the same level. But yeah, the pass rush was there today. Verse and Byron, and I'm trying to remember if we saw this stat on, you know, on the live stream here, if I saw this off just looking at stats and, you know, haven't brought it up yet. But regardless, when I was looking here, I guess I can see if we can look it up here. When we were looking at defensive stats at some point, Verse and Byron Young are both in, I want to say the top 10 for pressures, but here, they might both be in the top 5 as well too. So maybe that was, oh, this is for passing stuff. We need some defensive stats here, chat. Let's see. If we remember how to go back to the individual player advanced stats. Oh, here we go. Player advanced stats. Let's see what we can find. But regardless, their defensive line has just been menacing. And I think we did look up their PFF grades at some point. So, you know, AO, that is what it is. But just as another metric to kind of show that, you know, at least other people are valuing their performance as well too. So yeah, Byron Young, I guess they're both tied for second with 17 pressures this year. And Byron Young has turned that into 7.5 sacks, which would be second in the league. You've got Benito at 8. So yeah, Verse is at 3, but again, both those guys just pressuring the quarterback have been terrifying this year. So that alone is enough to start to make, obviously continue, I guess, to make the Rams scary in the NFC. And maybe they kind of do sneaky have to be the number one, because Hutch has been right up there as well too. And yeah, he's at 6 sacks, 16 pressures. So we can't necessarily write him off, and they don't have either of their games listed on here. But he hasn't played yet today, so whatever stats were logged by these guys, he still has a chance to catch up on that. But and again, Amon-Ra versus Puka Nacua, like the Lions are right there with the Rams. The Eagles have the personnel as well too. If Carter's out there, they have their interior guy, AJ Brown and Saquon. They have the offensive weapons, Hurts, all that different stuff. We know, but that type of those playmakers on defense do, of course, push this Rams into that Super Bowl contender. And this is what was making them there that last year, was looking at the talent that they had on the defensive line and the youth there and just going, man, if this continues to get better, how scary could this be? And that's the thing, we don't know necessarily what level of jump to project. And again, it's difficult sometimes with the defensive lineman because of how the stats translate. Like, is Verse going to have a step up year? Does that mean he's going to have 15 and a half sacks this year? Again, is he pacing for that right now? Not necessarily. But is he a better defensive lineman this year? Is he, obviously continuing to just wreck plays as much as he did last year? Yeah, absolutely. And I guess Byron Young is probably a little bit of a step up better as well too. Again, I guess both those guys, Byron Young maybe a little bit more peak of his powers years at this point. So, maybe we expect him to be a little bit closer to that as well too. But the fact that they have the guys that can close out a game on the defense, get to the quarterback, create a turnover, just get a stop. And kind of like, what you saw with Parsons today, of course, is why you trade for him to the Packers. Obviously you trade for him to close out a game against Jacoby Brissett. But if that's what you need to, that's what you need to. But you have a guy that you have guys that you can rely on, just individual players on both sides of the football that can make plays. And the system, Kansas City, speaking of systems, they have obviously a great one. The Rams are, again, I guess that was more of the speaking of systems. The Rams are not just great individual players, but great systems as well too. But I guess, obviously we're combining thoughts here, but for the Chiefs, they're a little bit of that too, where yes, the Andy Reid coaching stuff, we can't give that enough credit. And Spagnuolo and his ability to be able to dial up the stuff at the right moment. But even if they didn't have Spags, you're just like, okay, between Mahomes and, obviously maybe peak of his powers at this point, but, or for Kelsey more so, but, Mahomes, Kelsey, and Chris Jones, those three guys can kind of carry you and make plays. Like, legitimately, those three guys can make enough plays to be able to get you to the Super Bowls that they made. And I know that there's other guys that made big plays as well too. The first Niners Super Bowl, the running back could have been the MVP for the Chiefs. He was great. Was that Damian Williams was really great in that game? And was the Jags only score a special team score, or did that get called back? Again, kind of brutal day for the offense. And the Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars are the ones that have a little bit more international experience at this point. Oh yeah, it did get called back on a penalty, so it wasn't due to special teams. But still, I guess good play. You got to give him credit. Shout out. But yeah, the great defensive linemen, and of course, like we say, Philly last year, they had the depth in the rotation to be able to get there. But, San Francisco has kind of suffered from that a little bit. Obviously the year they won the Super Bowl, or lost the Super Bowl, I guess. Sorry to the Niners fans. But the year they were with Garoppolo and almost, got there, almost got the win. If he's able to get that pass, maybe that game goes a little bit differently. But they've had opportunities for some defensive closeouts and haven't quite had those as well too. And they do have playmakers, but again, they just haven't quite hit the 100% to be able to, of course, close out the deal and get the ring. But the Rams, and if Stafford, of course, just continues to stay healthy and reliable, they might be top of the NFC as well too. Personnel healthy, that I think is the best core of talent in the NFC. And the Bucks are right there as well too. Baker's playing, of course, at an MVP level, and Buka, again, health and stuff. Fortunately, all the receivers, I guess, are hurt. Not fortunately, obviously, but I guess for a competitive advantage standpoint, if the Rams guy is down, also the Bucks guy is injured too. So I guess there's a balance there. Not much of a silver lining, but regardless, they do have the strong collection of the top talent of guys to rely on. And, you know, we're kind of leaving out offensive linemen of this conference. This is kind of everybody on defense can make a play in offense, and, you know, everybody on offense, but we're leaving out offensive line for the conversation, and it could be the most important part. But again, you know, we're talking about just those fantasy guys or the stats guys that we can see making plays and having those productive moments. And the Bucs would probably be lacking a little bit of name value from some of the defensive players at this point. But again, Dean has had a great year. We were looking at that PFF grade a couple of live streams ago. He has had a great year up until this point, and they still have like Diaby and some young talent there. I guess here, where's Diaby on this list, Chad? I feel like he is still having a good year as well too, even though his name doesn't get brought up quite as much, though. You know, we'll double check. I guess, you know, if we have to say, is he having quite as good of a year? You know, maybe that proves our point where we're just like, bro, versus just having a great year. Like, you don't even have to, you know, watch football that much to just see him dominate a game. But, you know, again, he's still being, I think, an impact guy for him as well, too. So, let's see here, chat. We're looking for, can we get it? Tampa. We need to find what Diaby's production has kind of looked like from a general metric standpoint. And again, like if they get Evans and Godwin back, and Bucky Irving as well too, we can't forget about Bucky Irving. Like, they do have a ton of guys on offense to be able to go toe to toe with all these teams. But yeah, D, number 1 corner in the league. Shout out. And they have Reddick as well too. Diaby 60th out of the edges. You know, not terrible, but not necessarily, you know, necessarily the same on paper grade as some of the other players. And we know Winfield and stuff as well too, super good. Levante David, you know, doesn't slow down. So he is still a guy that is able to create stuff. You know, Vita Vea as well. And maybe that's where, again, the Colts are, I guess, bring this all the way back to the Colts. You know, maybe that's where the Colts sort of struggle in that conversation as well too, where you just look at the league and you go, okay, they're not quite emerged in front of the rest of the teams the same way as, you know, they're not like, oh, you know, historically better than some of these teams where it's undeniable. And you would still go, okay, the collection of the talent that I trust, that factor would still be a little bit more than what we're getting from Indy at this point. Because who would be the top name value guys? Again, Daniel Jones has been near the best player on the team at this point. But Taylor, obviously. And then after that, you know, Warren is earning his stripes in the NFL at this point. Make no mistake. He is continuing to prove himself and is already in the conversation for one of the best tight ends in the league. But the rest of the team, you know, still needs to, I guess, continue to up that sort of fan name value type stuff for people to continue to trust them in that type of way. Ayo, chat, we got to take a quick break. We got, I guess, Ayo, is it allergy season, chat? Is it us moving around the country, crossing state lines, or we got I don't know, we got to readjust to being back in a little further south? I don't know. But we got to, chat, we got to get a tissue or something. And I feel like we just got, chat, it is what it is. I feel like we just got boogers hanging out all over the place. Not the kind you want, chat. Not, you know, Kendrick put boogers in the chain. Maybe ones we actually need to get cleaned up. Give us a second. We'll be right back, chat. Oh, chat. There we are. Okay, I was gonna say we were stalling out. Technical difficulties. I feel like we fired back up quickly there. We're getting better at fixing our own technical difficulties, chat. It is what it is. But I guess we're trying to be good to go for now. I guess until halftime. Hey, almost halftime. We could have waited, but shout out. We've got the Niners up 10-3 with 38 seconds left in the half. Atlanta, I guess, we'll see if they're able to tie it up, put a field goal on the board with less than a minute left. But yeah, I guess Ayo, quickly to go back to what we were saying there before we had to take a break. That name value sort of core drafting aspect, maybe Indy doesn't have quite that at this point. And even some of the guys on Denver, like Benito is emerging, like we're saying, as a star, leading the league in sacks. Patrick Surtain, of course, already has that defensive player of the year pedigree. I mean, Sutton, you could argue the Colts receivers versus the Broncos receiver, but you're not worse off having Sutton versus any of the Colts receivers. It's a fair argument. So, there is some top end talent there. Like if we did NFL 100 list, like would the Colts have a ton of guys on the NFL 100 list? Maybe we have a bunch of guys like right outside or kind of 80s through 150s in that range. But for the real top end talent, it doesn't quite seem we have the name value outside of Taylor and Warren. Again, in that level. Or Quentin Nelson. Hey, I can't believe, I guess we weren't talking offensive linemen there as well, too, for guys that can move the ball and pick up yardage and those type of things. I guess Quentin Nelson can move the ball as well, too, chat. Pause, because of how, good at blocking he is and opening up space for the offense to create. But, yeah, Indy is to the point where, I guess like what I'm saying, I'm going to have to revisit the question with the friends in a couple of weeks to see if their mind has changed. Because if they continue like this, there is, at some point, it just has to be like, okay, yeah, they are a top-end contender for a Super Bowl. And, again, I guess we could check the odds here. But outside of Buffalo and KC, I can't imagine that there is a third team above them at this point. And they would be winning the division comfortably now with Jacksonville taking another loss. So they could just be, fourth at worst because it'd be the 4 division winners in the conference at the top of the conference odds. But I guess they would be at least one spot above that at 3 in my mind. So we can double check here and just see where FanDuel has them anyways as a potential Super Bowl team. If they do have the conference odds live at this point as well, too, we'll have to check. 27 seconds left in the half. Do they have it updated? Yeah, Kansas City 1, Buffalo 2, Indy 3, Denver 4, and Baltimore is 5. Baltimore has 1 win on the year, and they have the 5th best odds to win the AFC. Did they get a second win as well, too? Maybe they got a second one, but at most they have 2 wins on the year, and they're on bye this week, and their quarterback is going to be off of injury. I mean, he's still one of the best. We still trust him, but it is definitely an uncertain situation for 5th. I guess let's look at the NFC here. Tampa. Hey, that just shows you the difference. Green Bay is still number 1 to win the NFC after winning to Arizona against 4 by 4 points today against Jacoby Brissett. I guess really putting a lot of stock in either Jacoby Brissett really good performances against good teams or just their continued stock in that week 1 performance against the Lions or what the Lions did against Kansas City. But, Philly, and Kansas City winning that game comfortably, winning that game in a good way against Detroit. But Philly also got a win against KC, so there's some weird math there. I don't know. And then LA over Tampa. I know that we just said that we would take the LA core, but I'm kind of looking at it. I don't know. And it would be the health thing of Stafford or maybe Nakua at this point. I don't know. But, yeah, I would rather have both those Rams defenders. So I guess I could stand by that, chat. The Rams over the Bucks for the potential NFC Championship at this point. But I would honestly take both those teams over the Packers. I would definitely, and again, we go health. I don't know if Stafford is still the most trustworthy guy, but he continues to get out there and play, chat. And we continue to see him fight, just continue to be productive. But I don't know if Love has necessarily separated himself over, any of these guys. Goff, Hurts, Stafford, or Baker. We'd have to get to Purdy. And to be honest, I don't know if Love has been decisively better than Sam Darnold this year as well, too. I mean, the Seahawks at 50-1 is definitely not the best value that they've been at on the year. But to be honest, we might bet that a little bit, chat, because and the Rams at 7-1 is not bad. Maybe we sprinkle a little on that as well too. I don't know, but well, I guess the Rams at 7-1 is not like great. But yeah, Seattle does have that, like we're saying, that sleeper stacked roster a little bit. Maybe they're kind of like the Indy of the NFC. So are we doing like comparison here, chat? Conference comparisons? Indy and Seattle are the same team. We've got Tampa and Denver are the same team. I guess Indy's run game maybe a little bit more consistent than Seattle's run game, though, you know, again, Walker and stuff is definitely high level potential there. Is San Francisco, Baltimore, all the injuries, though? I don't know if Baltimore is going to be replacing their starter with their backup at this point. More starter MVP. Is Baltimore Dallas? I don't know. That'd be the biggest compliment, you know. To the Cowboys are like, yes, we're like a 1-5 team that has Lamar Jackson. Shout out. But the Packers. Who's the overhyped team, chat? The Packers are like the Colts. Everybody's like the Colts in the AFC. I don't know. I guess we already did use up the Broncos. Packers are like the Chiefs, but I'd say the Chiefs are like the Eagles. You know, the team that have been there multiple times that we just trust, even if the performances are a little rocky. I guess I don't know if we just trust, but the team we have to just have in the conversation as long as they're there because, you know, of the legacy. So Chiefs are like the Eagles. The Bills are like the Packers, but I would say Allen has been really good. So the Bills are like the Rams, or they are like, no, because none of these teams really have the MVP. Bryce Young for the Panthers. The Bills are like the Panthers. I don't know. They're now with the Bryce Young injury, I guess officially plus 12,000 to win the conference. So what are they with Bryce Young to win the conference? Are they just plus 1,000? I don't know. But yeah, maybe those are just the teams that have the equal comparisons as well. But yeah, I guess I don't remember exactly where we pivoted off there at this point, but yeah, I guess that Rams core is, like we're saying, looking pretty good in that Jags game, if that's what we were mentioning there. So stats check for this one without Puka and without Kyron Williams. Hey, he 12 for 54, Corum 12 for 37. Unfortunately, you know, we like Kyron, but yeah, our guy Blake Corum, of course, Michigan legend, hasn't quite had the it's not like, oh, his touches have been crazy when he's out there again. His longest rush in this game was 6 yards. So if he was, 5 for 37, and one of those was these reps would be like, oh, he need to get more carries, but obviously not the case. And Travis Hunter did score. He did have a good game as well too. So I don't know what the snap count was for Travis Hunter, but I know we say it every week, but just as a reminder, the Travis Hunter receiver upside is there. You gave up a lot for him. Do we remember the receivers in this draft? It was pretty stacked. I guess McMillan has been pretty good in the draft so far, and he was a top 10 pick as well too. So I don't know who was like obviously leading. Oh, and Buka, Chad, he's a rookie. I guess he's been playing so well that the biggest compliment, we weren't thinking of him as a rookie necessarily, or he was a little bit later, not top 10. Same conversation as Travis Hunter, but obviously looking back, all this stuff is who should have been there. But Mbuka is won by a little bit. McMillan, then Warren, Fannin, and then Golden at 212. 14 for 212. Travis Hunter, 20 catches for 197. Eric Manor for Tennessee, 17 for 196, and 2 touchdowns for him as well too. And then you have Luther Burden, 150, and Jaden Higgins for the Texans at 121. 9 for 121 in a touchdown as well too. Tez Johnson, 6 for 112 in a touchdown. Torrey Orton, 9 for 113 and 3 touchdowns, taking away some fantasy numbers from somebody there. But yeah, Golden, he's not too far behind him in production at this point, even though Golden's already got a touchdown. I guess, what did Golden have today, chat? Did Travis Hunter pass him? So Travis Hunter, 101. He is sitting at, where is he at, chat? He is sitting at 208. So he's got 208 yards, a touchdown, and, hey, wait, 208. I'm crazy, chat. He is sitting at 298. Sorry about that. 298 and 8 receptions. How many receptions did he 28 receptions? Did he have 20? Yeah, 28 receptions for 298 yards and a touchdown on the year. And Golden was, I guess we can go to the Packers box score here next for Arizona. Do we just pull up this game as well, too, for the highlights? We'll cue these up next, chat, and get these going here in a second. But, yeah, Golden for this game was, let's see here, 4 for 37 and 0. So, 2 touchdowns. He's still in the lead there. But 37 yards is going to put him at 149 for 18 for 149. So he did pass him in total yards anyways, even though Golden's average is probably still a little bit better. And, wait, I guess Golden has no touchdowns. So, chat! Travis Hunter, better year than Golden. It is what it is. I don't know if we go fantasy points and see who's added up, but receptions are important for fantasy as well, too. So, at least he has a little bit of advantage there, even though Eric Manor is maybe got more than all of them. I don't know. And Mbuka definitely does. And so does McMillan, of course. He's finding the ends it a little bit, but let's take an actual halftime break, I guess. It is halftime. 10-3, Falcons versus the 49ers. We'll keep watching some highlights, reacting to what happened in NFL Week 7, catching up because of our road trip. And we'll be back, chat, to continue to hang out on this NFL Sunday. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, chat, we are back. Halftime, of course, in progress. We're queuing up these Packers versus Cardinals highlights from earlier that we said we're going to catch up on here and see how the Cardinals were able to hang. Again, Brissett, a true pro, has really been playing well. So, there's definitely a bigger picture QB thing with the way some of these veterans maybe are subbing in / stepping up and performing, and maybe the week-to-week stuff as well too is always going to be a factor into sort of course, differentiating which ones are legit and which ones are not. Is everybody Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold? There's some people just have those good sort of backup performance type weeks as well too. But again, performances for Brissett against two good teams, regardless of how far up the confidence rankings. Packers, maybe they're dropped a little bit, I don't know, but they're still a top team. Even if they're even if FanDuel's the only one that actually thinks they're gonna win the NFC, then they're still a team that has to be in the mix. And their record is still better than not at this point in the season. That Cowboys game, such a weird game emotionally with that Parsons return game, and ending in a tie is not ideal, but at least still now looking back, I guess 4-1-1's not 4-2 anyways, so we can't say they've lost that one anyways, even though maybe again emotionally it goes in a little bit of a different category. But yeah, I guess here we should actually click on the game and see what we have going on. And I was gonna say maybe there's something with the play calling going on right now, or maybe with the Cardinals as well too, but just with the play calling for allowing some of these veterans, and then with the quicker reads that they're making, quick reads. I mean, is that ever going to be a bad thing? But in 6 sacks today, the lack of mobility. Of course, Parsons, definitely be a menace today in that aspect. But speaking of us watching, when we were hopping on the red zone later, one of the plays they ran late in the game was like this out route situation to Marvin Harrison, where he had like kind of a route breaking out toward the sideline, but then was supposed to cut back up the field toward the end zone. And then that's, on the cut back up, I guess that's when the pass happens, and that's when he's supposed to look for the ball. And they were pointing on the broadcast that he probably should have just had like the out route there, just gone to the sideline, and he was open, and maybe even stops the clock as well too. Has sort of double benefits there. But so maybe that was a play where I was watching. I was like, maybe this play calling situation isn't great for the Cardinals. Maybe that one was just a little bit off in that scenario. Or, again, maybe we have to actually dig in to see what's going on there. But again, Harrison was open, so it's not like, what is his storylines? The route running, is he the receiver that we all thought? It's like, or is just, is he being told to look at the pass at the wrong times? And better systems would allow him to, of course, produce. But Love, 19 for 29, 179 and a touchdown. And I don't even know if he is hurt, because if he is, shout out to him for playing. And I guess he's a tough guy. It's unfortunate that he does get hurt every year, but there is kind of a dinged up thing with him that, at least he's always got something. And not to say that, everybody's got something. Hey, yo, Chad. But, if it just like is always going to be a reason as to why his performances are going to be a little bit behind the other guys, then maybe it's just a thing that we have to factor into the Jordan Love experience at this point. And the Arizona defense as well too. They can get pressure, they can be feisty. They only had 1 sack today, but they can play well for sure. But yeah, Brissett, just looking at the numbers, and again, eye test, I don't know, we watched the third quarter here, the pressure stuff, and Parsons again just individually kind of closing out, I think was just as impressive as all the other stuff. Ooh, there is Harrison on that out, going to the sideline. Again, that time, which, of course, with his body control and all the difference, he's obviously good at those scenarios as well, too. That stuff is definitely carried over into the pros. But, yeah, Brissett is the better quarterback as Jordan Love. And again, I don't know, we're doing football math. Like, as much as Brissett had a good game against Indy and, they were hanging around, like, Daniel Jones was still, I think, the better quarterback in that game. And if he wasn't, at least it was close. Like, I don't know if it was quite like this, so you get some garbage time as well too. But yeah, Arizona was winning this game for a while. That's why I guess I had to go back and question whether or not Green Bay actually closed this one out, because they also had a little bit of a fourth quarter push with their 14 fourth quarter points in getting this comeback victory as well. Josh Jacobs, 13 for 55. Let's check. I feel like maybe he's been a little inconsistent the last couple of weeks, but maybe he's just been up and down over this season. I don't remember exactly, every week which one was his big performances here, so we'll double check and see. And I guess he hasn't hit 100 yards. He's been getting some touchdowns, so that's been helping from the fantasy. I guess hasn't hit 100 yards rushing, we should say, because he was 100 yards from scrimmage. Okay, each of the last 2 games. So I guess again, up and down as well too this year. So I'm factoring in. I'm immediately erasing his good games the minute he logs a low stat line, and be like, okay, this is what it is. But I guess 4 out of the 6 at this point have been below 100 yards from scrimmage. I guess let's double check. Did he have 50 receiving yards today? He might have. No, 1 for 3. So yeah, he was less than 60 scrimmage. So this was the low performance for Josh Jacobs. We got to give him a break. And again, he was still in the end zone today. So he's been a menace over the last 2 weeks from a fantasy standpoint. 150 and 2 touchdowns. You're not going to be mad there, chat. Hey, yo. And again, you do have, like we're saying, I guess the sort of the unfortunate results of the tie versus Dallas, and then Flacco just being around in that game, and the Bengals being a little bit feistier than you'd like. And again, Arizona even being a little bit feistier in this game than you'd like. And maybe they're, again, just a good 6-10 team, or something like that. 6-10 teams, again, they're competitive. They're just not quite great at closing out wins. But that's where maybe, again, we were saying earlier, this is one of these scenarios where we have to watch the quarterback. And I guess, we've kind of mentioned a lot of the games at this point that I guess would be involved in that as well too. But I would say, obviously, like, just to double back on it, quadruple back on it, pause, Arizona, it's just, what do they, not to say that, do they move on from Kyler to go to Jacoby Brissett, but is this a situation of, okay, we can see what some of the rest of the talent is, we can see just the general competitiveness of the team with a different quarterback in there, and yes, again, Kyler is maybe capable of some more stuff, but consistency is a factor, and it's not just, I guess, general game to game. Is Kyler capable of a higher performance overall than Jacoby Brissett? But again, Brissett's consistency the last 2 weeks, I don't know, has Kyler had back-to-back weeks as good as Jacoby Brissett has had? Like this here, let's double check. And again, it's not to say that he's been the best quarterback in the league, but I don't remember his turnover count for last week. We'll see. And again, the mobility, 6 sacks, like that's still a factor. Maybe Kyler's able to avoid some of that pressure. So yeah, he was 1 interception last week. So, and he threw a couple of risky ones today. So again, it's a little of the Flacco where he can get the yards, and some of the box scores can look a little bit better than the actual performances. But 320 yards in last week's game, and then in 2 touchdowns and a pick, and then 279 and 2 touchdowns in today's game. So wait, let's see what Kyler Murray has been up to this year as well from a stat line standpoint. His highest pass total is 220 yards this year. So he has had touchdowns in every game except for the last one that he played in against Tennessee. And that's an unfortunate loss as well too. But the overall stats have not even matched what Brissett has had as well too. So wait, going back to 2024, hey yo chat, I don't know if this is gonna get depressing, but he had 266. He had a high of 307 in week 8, but both of those were surrounded by 150. He had 145, 307, and then 154. 307, 2 touchdowns, no picks, in a 1-point win versus Miami in that week 8 game. And then he had 321, 1 touchdown, 2 picks though, and they lost to the Rams 9-13. So, and then were they even playing a good Niners team in this week 17 last year? The Niners were out of the playoffs at that point, and I think resting some guys. So maybe Mac Jones was playing, and we kind of like him right now this year, I guess. But moving the ball a little bit, though, probably unfortunately not to Kendrick Bourne. I think we fantasy jinxed him, picking him up. We were down some guys this week, having the Bills offense out. Mbuka maybe missed some action. I don't know if we take the risk for Monday night. Is Kendrick Bourne, or Mbuka questionable? This means Mbuka's going to play and he's going to pop off. But so shout out to the Bucs fans, or unfortunately to the Lions fans. We reversed fantasy jinxed it and now it's not going to go well because we also have Montgomery in our lineup, so he's not going to play. He's not going to play good at all. But yeah, I guess the touchdown count for these two games from Kyler, 4 touchdowns to 2 picks, but the yardage count wouldn't count. And again, that lost the Rams. I wouldn't say back to back. Those games were quite matched that, but I guess we're just trying to make a point there a little bit. 47-24 win is a good win, though. Again, week 18, that's such a wild card week. It really just depends on if both teams are out of the playoffs. I don't know how competitive we can take that game. If it's a younger player, if it's like a Mahomes situation, then it helps us prove our point. But a veteran like Kyler, I guess it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know, but then he returns from injury 2023, so we got to give him, I guess, a little bit of a break for this year. But he didn't have a 300-yard performance in this year at all, too. So I guess since returning from injury in 2023, he hasn't had as good of a stretch that Brissett has had in these 2 games. I don't know, Chad. Again, I think you could argue it, even though I might not be totally right. And I guess week 2 and 3 of 2022, I mean, again, Chad, this could get depressing. Hey, yo. Year 3 Kyler, so we have more years in front of the good Kyler Murray performances, the bad ones. Here we go, Chad. I think this could be one that could be arguably undeniable. I don't know. Actually, should we double-check quarterback ratings? And this is a good stretch of QB ratings as well, too. So he's got some picks in here. Maybe I shouldn't just make up what is a good stats game. Let's see. We've got week 1 through 7 for the 2021 season. He was, for those weeks, 2,000 yards in 7 games, 7-0. 2,000 yards, 73% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 5 picks, 116.8 quarterback rating. And then he got hurt against Green Bay because he started this game, but he was having a bad game anyways, it looked like. I don't know. Or I guess he got hurt in the next game. I guess he didn't play that game as well, inactive. Or I don't know. Did he? I don't know what happened. He gets better. I'm assuming he got hurt. But, yeah, he had 274 and 2 picks. And then he did bounce back a little bit from a stat standpoint as well. But they didn't definitely compile the wins in the same type of way. They were 2-4 in those last 6. Yeah, 1,500 yards, 7-3. So I guess 89 rating. Definitely a bit of a drop-off. So was that the injury, Chad? Do we have to go back and double-check what happened in 2021? And again, that's a ways away now. But that would be the checkpoint to go, okay, there's an obvious run of his stats being really great consistently in these 7 games. And then, he missed time. And since then, it hasn't quite been the same. So wait, let's give him one more chance, Chad, from a QB rating standpoint, and see if I just wasn't calculating it quite right. But he had 195 and then 101 in this 3-game stretch here. And they won against New Orleans pretty good, but then lost the next 2. So again, it doesn't quite match the 7-0, I guess, of that run, if it isn't quite getting to the win total factor of it. 2023, he was, in those final 2 games, over 100 QB rating, 97, so kind of the same thing. But yardage a little bit lower, so maybe a little bit safer on some of the stuff. And again, I'm not trying to, I guess I am trying a little bit, maybe a little bit of hyperbolic to just kind of talk out, how is this going with the Kyler Murray thing over the last 5 years at this point. But again, that's one where I don't know if we have to look up the contract here and see how many years we're working with at this point. But if it is getting to the point where there's a movability in terms of what the commitment would be for other teams, and if you're Arizona, maybe you're just dealing like, okay, do we just try to play this out and see what happens? And we're kind of in a, maybe unfortunately on the lower end of the middle ground in terms of what we have at the quarterback spot, but he is under contract till 2027. So next year, cap hit of $53 million. $57 million in dead cap, and then in 2027 he's got $43 million cap hit, but only $7.2 million in dead cap. So if in 2027 pre June 1st release, $36 million on the cap savings. If you release him after June 1st, pause, I guess it's 0 on the cap savings. Oh, for 2028 dead cap 0. Oh, okay, it's also the same. So wait, is there still dead cap, I guess, if you release him in 2028? That would apply. So it doesn't really have anything listed. I guess, I don't know. It wouldn't be that big of a number, maybe, if it did matter. A little roster bonus there, though. That could happen. Those don't seem to really matter, though. But yeah, I guess if you were a team trading for Kyler, he's got the $100 million cap hit this year, so I don't know what that means from a trade standpoint. When a release or a trade is processed after June 1st, the remaining dead cap on the contract is allowed to be split across the current year and the following year. The dead cap that is directly associated with the contract year plus all future guaranteed salaries remain as current year dead cap, while the remaining future dead cap is allocated to the following season. So if you were to bring him in before this trade deadline, you could potentially just have, one season of seeing what that is. And then maybe, I guess you make a move or something. Oh, Pitts down the sideline. What just happened, chat? Pitts is 6 for 43 tonight. Penix 14 for 20 for 145. Maybe he gets cooking here a little bit in the third. Maybe he is starting to cook. They are moving the ball down the field, swinging it out to Bijan. Bijan through the hole. Chat pause. 2nd and 8 on the getting into the red zone here as they get about to the 10-yard line. But if I'm reading this right or partially understanding this, I guess somebody else probably understood it better than me, of course. But at $57 million, I guess if there was a move on from Kyler Murray next year, you could have like a $25 maybe $30 million cap hit each year. It's not great, but it's definitely a little more manageable than 100 or 50 or spread across a couple years there. But if you're willing to have the one season in 2026 and see what happens there, then you're looking at much more manageable $7 million move if you have to have something happen in the season after that. And Bijan, another little screen pass swing out route to the running back, and he's able to finish off the drive for a touchdown. 5 plays, 48 yards, 341. And they can make this a 10-13 game here. And like we're saying, maybe Penix can build some momentum. But I could see Kyler, we were talking trade candidates. I could see Kyler really starting to go up at least maybe Arizona could see what they have around. And, at this point as well, too, you thought with Kyler, if of course he was staying healthy. I mean, that's definitely a factor, but, again, a factor in the way that it's kind of becoming a factor over multiple seasons. But if the record is starting to trend to the point where the wild card is looking a little distant, then if you're making some dramatic moves, again, it's not going to shake up too much the overall destiny of the team because you're already 2-5. So, like we're saying, you've got, let's see here, I guess wild card round losers. Seattle at 4-2, San Francisco 4-2, or on the low end right now of the wild card teams. Detroit at 4-2 as well. Again, if they win, they could jump up here to Super Bowl tomorrow night. So if they really turn this around and rip off a couple wins in a row, then yes, of course you're back in the mix. But with the trade line being where it's at, in November, then at that point in the season, it'd really be determined whether or not at least you'd be eliminated, or not eliminated, but, it's like, okay, are we out of reach at this point of trying to turn this around? And, I don't know if, again, the 2025 class is the one that you're looking for the franchise rebuild, but if you're trying to reset it and, maybe Kyler's not a Russell Wilson package in terms of, are you going to get multiple first-round picks to rebuild your franchise with? But you could get some future pieces, and then maybe you'd be set up to more understandably tank the year after that. It gets risky for Gannon and the GM in terms of their longevity. Do we get to keep our jobs if we try to build this thing out with some younger players? But I could start to see this trend toward a quarterback. And I'm not, I guess, shout out Kyler. We're not trying to run him out of the league at this point. But I wonder if the Arizona timeline is starting to shorten up there a little bit. And here, just to double check kind of the overview of the stats on the year 5 games played, 2-3. I guess 6 touchdowns, 3 picks is not bad. We got to give him a little bit of credit for that, for sure. But it is percentage-wise where I guess he was at last year. So maybe 10-5, 7-14. Maybe it's a little bit better. No, he's been pretty consistent, actually, the last couple years. At kind of 2-1 in the touchdown to interception. 68% completion percentage. So I don't know, it's not translated to wins. 88 on the quarterback rating. It's not necessarily the most stellar performance. So big contract. You can move on from a cap standpoint, an expectation standpoint, get some higher up, the younger talent, maybe trending in a different direction, and see where the franchise wants to go. Or do you just draft and stash Arch Manning in the 5th round? Or maybe not even that, chat. Hey, yo, how many points do they score against Kentucky this week? Maybe Texas is in a Kyler Murray situation with Arch Manning. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I could see him being available. So I guess the other thing would be, like, for teams that could be in this conversation, to bring back Denver. What is Denver looking like with Bo Nix at this point? What is the timeline for Bo Nix on this team? Because, like we're saying, Bo Nix in a couple of years, his savvy veteran. He got to the point in college, of course, where he was a savvy veteran that was one of the most winningest guys and high-level producing players. So I could see that. And like we're saying, this year, the last couple of years, have definitely opened my mind up to keeping the stock in those high-level quarterbacks, and just in terms of at least bring them in if you're a team, if you think they're a good fit in your system, because you never know what the odds are that that's the right opportunity for them to succeed. And if you need that, then of course that's a great advantage to have. But I don't know if the Sean Payton Bo Nix thing is going to work out, or Sean Payton just needs to get realistic about what Bo Nix is capable of and just dial it in, because it is, of course, I'm going to say it's working because, again, they're winning. Like, I get that that's what, it's working in terms of the fact that they're getting wins, but I would not say that the offense is working at this point. So I don't know here what PFF has for rankings. I guess we'll double check. They have the total as well. Yeah, like they have us over, the 12th overall team grade, but 20th overall in team points scored. So fortunately, of course, the defense, in terms of at least letting people score, second in that category going into the week, and second in the league at 95 points allowed. But 20th overall is not great. And I don't know the yardage as well, too. And I guess we could continue to track Bo Nix, but they've had, and I don't know if we're letting PFF influence us too much, but, I don't know if I would agree that he's been I guess, there's no way that Fields is not over 26 to 36. Okay. Thankfully, Bo Nix is up the list a little bit, and not the worst, but at least he's getting into the starting level. And I don't know how his 4th quarter is going to mess with the grade. We'll definitely have to go back and see what happened in that 4th quarter. Even again, chat, hey, yo, like, what was going on there? But, he still just was missing. So just the accuracy and what they're expecting of this offense is not quite lining up. And to be honest, at Oregon, he had moments where, of course, he could run around and be creative and extend plays. And you could definitely see the athleticism. Make no mistake. Like, it was a thing that was an impactful part of the game. But the offense was a quick offense and allowed him to make a bunch of easy throws and allow the creators to get in space and operate. So again, in college, what is capable of there in terms of the NFL? You can't just always just be like, okay, just avoid all the tacklers on the field, go for it. But and again, Sutton is a guy that moves down the, maybe is a guy that operates down the field a little bit more than just like take a screen 80 yards to the house. But there maybe needs to be a little bit more of a replication there of what happens. Chet, they do have Fields graded out over Bo Nix. They have Fields as a 22nd quarterback in the league. I mean, hey, yo, Chet, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just trying to figure out, as a site that prides itself, I'm sure, in its grading system, I guess, and also that's just, I guess, throw shade at them, but as a site that we like to, use as a reference point to how good players are in the league, it's like, okay, what is their reference point for stats as well, too? I guess no picks for Fields, but did he correct that today, Chet? Hey, yo, I mean, he's not even throwing passes, so I don't know what what they're grading out. Do they not like sacks or something? I don't know. They're really, maybe we just really need to pay attention to the plays. Like, they're really not on Fields' fault. This is just the most unfortunate set of circumstances. So I guess, yeah, again, he didn't have a pick today. So he goes 6 for 12 for 46. Just if you're grading out basics, like, I don't know, 3 sacks, I guess. Like, I don't, hey, it's not 22 out of 36, but shout out, it is in some ways. So let's look at Bryce Young here. Where do they have Bryce Young? This is gonna be a bummer, chat. Hey, Bryce Young below Bo Nix and Justin Fields, but I don't know if Panthers fans would trade Bryce Young for Bo Nix and, I guess 23rd. Oh, he's in the range. Okay, shout out. Still worse than Justin Fields this year, apparently. Hey, Chad, is quarterback rating match that? I guess he is 94 on the quarterback rating. Is that mixing with the rushing as well, too? He's 36.5 in the QBR. So once again, I'm not trying to prove a point. We're just trying to figure out what is accurate, what we're seeing, what is happening. And I guess, if we filtered it by the last 2 weeks, what would that mean? Cam Ward is at a 24.9. Hey, chat, and he had some tough plays again today. It was a little brutal. 55% completion percentage. So, we've seen Bryce Young maybe have the same thing, but to be honest, is this going to be a new version of the peaks and the valleys, chat? Pause. Hey, was Bryce Young's QBR ever this low? Did it ever dip below 25? Hey, whoa, it just got blocked by that. Bryce Young, his rookie year, had a 33.4. Hey, so Cam Ward is almost 4 points behind Bryce Young's QBR. And Bryce Young last year was 50.7. So this year he's actually worse, 42.6. I don't know, was he a little better runner last year? Success percentage is higher for Bryce Young this year than it is last year. I guess we don't have that. Oh, wait, we do right here in this column. Let's see what we got. Cam Ward, 35% as a rookie. So it is a little bit in the same route there. But 24.9 is crazy. You got Wilson at a 32.4, Browning at a 35.6, and then Fields at a 36.5. Dylan Gabriel at a 37.5, but, Cleveland with a pretty decisive winner today. And I guess QBR is Tua's good stat, and PFF is Justin Fields' good stat, because that might be just in terms of eye test vibes, like maybe QB confidence as well, too, which is, like we've heard these coaches say, of course, that's as much as it is for these systems, as much as is literally calling the right plays, for them to read. It is them just instilling the right confidence for them to be able to, actually make for them to be able to actually just believe in the reads that they're making and actually throw it on time and that different type of stuff. But Tua is, again, a little bit like Aaron Rodgers versus Tua. Pittsburgh would not trade Aaron Rodgers for Tua right now. Jacksonville probably wouldn't, and I don't know if Arizona would trade Kyler. Bryce Young. Hey, it is what it is. We're arguing about a different section of the QB list, but shout out. It is what it is. So again, Kyler is in this mix in a couple of years in front of Trevor Lawrence. Bryce Young as well too. Carson Wentz obviously not long term. Geno, there's flexibility there. That's not the the heaviest commitment in the world. Even though you thought maybe can we get a season or two? But it's like if we have to pivot. We have the ability there. Again, same with Cleveland, New York. Cincinnati has Burrow, and then the Giants have Jackson Dart. So once you go through the list, it starts to be, again, Cam Ward's a rookie, so you're going to give him hope for next year. You've got the Saints with Rattler are going to be in a market, but that's a different type of market, of course, because that's more, maybe we're in a drafting market. And then just looking at the list, I guess, really it would be like, okay, do the Colts want to see about bringing in like a, the next type of guy? It would be other teams bringing in the mentor type of guy, where Colts, Dallas, Seahawks, maybe even Detroit, Tampa, like those type of guys, would they start focusing on the future in like a Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers type of way? Or San Francisco, I guess, would be another one as well, too, because they would have a little bit of a QB controversy developing with the way Mac Jones is playing. Could Purdy be an available guy? So I don't know if we mentioned, if we brought the Broncos fully into the point. Oh, wait a second. We went Brock Purdy, not different Broncos. I don't know if we brought the Broncos, though, into the point the way that we meant to. But the point would, and I guess we did mention, of course, what is the timeline for Bo Nix. But I guess the point being, Bo Nix was supposed to be a little bit more of a win now guy as well, too. And not to say that, I guess regardless of whatever that means, I guess the point would be the Broncos are in a win now window. And like we're saying, there is that sort of high-level competitive personnel in place, and the AFC does seem to be in an interesting spot. That maybe the case would be Bo Nix, of course, you would just believe in his upside ultimately, that he could, just take you to the Super Bowl or conference championship or whatever your expectations are, or that you just are believing in the chemistry and the vibes, and you kind of don't want to disrupt the locker room too much by making like a starting QB change in the middle of the season. It's a little bit different, I think, as well, too, than, like, bringing in Luka to control your offense. It's especially, like, a guy like Luka that can just, obviously have, like, 50% usage throughout the course of the game. But, yeah, like, switching an NBA team on the fly in the middle of the season is not, like, win the title level successful, but it's still a little bit more accomplishable in terms of what is, I think, the upside of the team. But still, could the Broncos be in a market for one of these type of guys? And maybe Kyler is a little bit too bit of a risky move, but I do wonder if Purdy or maybe Mac Jones, do they look at Mac Jones? I don't know. But maybe Purdy could be a guy. So I guess, Nix, like, would it be do you trade Bo Nix to the 49ers for Brock Purdy? They would still be a salary benefit for San Francisco to make that move. But I don't know if it would still bring in the value for Purdy. So he just signed the extension. $90 million in dead cap this year, 66, 38, 23, and 7. So if you want to commit to Purdy till like 2028 before you panic and cut him for $38 million, then you go ahead and trade for him now. I guess 2 more years after this one, and this one he's hurt right now with $100 million in dead cap. But maybe he's a guy that has at least conference championship experience. I'm not saying I'd be wild about that move. That would feel exactly like Russell Wilson with the, not exactly like, but salary-wise, it would be a very similar potential trap for the team. But that's almost why I see the team doing it as well, too, just because it's like, okay, they've been on this path before of overpaying for a quarterback in the trades and then being locked into a salary for a couple years more than you'd want. And that's not to be disrespectful, of course, to Purdy at only 25 and not necessarily, at least from an age standpoint, the downside of his career where some of the other quarterbacks that they brought in the past were there. But with them being in a competitive window, and of course if they didn't, trade Bo Nix in a quarterback move, just having the competition as well too would be interesting, where you would think, in the offseason, I guess we have the potential to change up starters if we need to, or we don't feel like we're totally desperate for a QB option. Again, if we feel like the one that we have right now is not totally working out. So I don't know if other teams would be super, like San Francisco's a little bit more contending expectations, even though, and I guess their record at 4-2, and if they win tonight 5-2, they still continue, like we're saying, record-wise, to maintain that right there with all the competitive teams. But maybe Arizona would be a little bit more inclined to make a quarterback move. But I don't know if Denver or San Francisco would just be like willing to maybe help Denver win a Super Bowl potentially. Like, I guess there is maybe some Shanahan potential legacy stuff that I guess could maybe some help out an old, Pop's old team type of thing. I don't know. But maybe they would have to go for a team that's a little bit more certainly not going to be competitive. But I think there are a couple of options out there if they wanted to. But I think ultimately it's going to be like, we're not going to see quarterback trades, I think, on the level of the NBA trades and the star players moving around. Again, star players, I don't know if that's what we're saying, but, or the big name guys, big contract guys, getting traded. But again, it does happen, maybe more in the offseason. So, again, just something to watch, and maybe it'd be more, do we just pivot away from a starting standpoint in the middle of the season at some point from some of these guys as well. But those two teams, I think, would be ones to potentially move guys out, with Purdy and Arizona. So NFC West would be one division to watch for that. I guess to get like Raiders and stuff like that as well too. But yeah, that'd be more replaced than trade. Like Purdy's still going to be a starter. You know, I would assume that if Kyler Murray wasn't starting in Arizona, he would be given at this point in his career, given an opportunity somewhere else to be the starter. Like, would he not be on the Jets, chat? Would Kyler Murray not be on the Jets if he was not on the Cardinals? But again, maybe Geno doesn't have another starting opportunity just knocking on the door for him if he's moving on from LA at this point. So I guess those would be the main ones as well too, because yeah, I guess Russ is not really on the block in the same type of way. And the Minnesota one is a different conversation, not win now competitive. So I guess it is with the roster they have, but not with the quarterback play that they have been getting. But I guess shout out to Panthers for the win over the Jets. And the Panthers were going into this game, I think, as 1.5-point favorites. So Bryce Young on the road. I don't know if it's the most trustworthy thing from a better standpoint. Maybe just being 1.5-point favorites on the road is a good thing in any metric. But I really should have bet the alt spread in this one to, up a couple points and really increase the odds, because you could get pretty good plus odds if ultimately them winning by 7+, 7.5 or whatever on the 6.5, I guess, on the alternate spread would have been at least 2-1, I think, alone. So that in some parlays would have been pretty nice. But again, just that as a straight up bet would have been pretty crazy value. And you're not going to get the Panthers in an alternate spread like that, I think, confidently against some of these other teams. And I don't think you could have gotten the Jets on that low of an alternate spread as well to like 6 or 7.5 with that good of a value. Like you might have to go to 2 touchdowns next time for them to. For you to get the type of, I don't know who they're playing next. If they play the Bills, but we'll just have to see how Vegas adjusts like the alt lines. But New York Jets alt lines are definitely going to be the thing that we're looking out for, because there's no way that they're losing these games by 3 to 4 points now. I guess Tyrod Taylor, we'll have to see if that affects our opinion in some of this stuff. But for the most part, yeah, it feels like a touchdown or so is going to be more often than not the right answer in a bunch of these games. So yeah, fortunately Bryce Young's okay though. That's tough. Right when the momentum starts to shift and things are starting to go well, the injury gets into the mix, and hopefully he's not going to be missing too much time for Carolina and they can keep their playoff hopes alive. But for the other early window games, we should definitely, of course, mention Patriots-Titans. And maybe, AO chat, this is hot take time. I don't know is it good to have hot take time later, or should it be earlier? I don't know anything about retention. But, I mean, do we... Hey, chat, do we send the ESPN, get the audition tapes a rolling? Like, do we have to talk about Drake May as being the best quarterback in the league this year? I don't know if I'm overreacting to having him on my fantasy team over the last couple of weeks, but I should have been playing him over Josh Allen over the last 2 weeks, and then Josh Allen went on by. And it's not to say that Josh Allen hasn't had good fantasy performances. I guess I don't remember exactly what happened last week because the rest of the team was so bad that it didn't honestly matter. But the Josh Allen performance itself, I think, was okay. Okay, sorry, chat. Ayo. I just panicked because the fantasy app didn't load, and I'm on Wi-Fi, and I thought maybe the Wi-Fi was down at the computer, and I was like, okay, is the live stream still going? But yeah, we are still up and running and good to go. Just, if the fantasy app takes a second, I guess that one will be okay. Actually, I think if we scroll down in this game, we can probably see the score. Am I logged in? Let's see here, chat. Okay, welcome to the fantasy team. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, well, I guess Drake May's fantasy points will be listed. Okay, Josh Allen. Can we see what we got here? Yeah, I guess he wasn't in the lineup today, so no. See more on ESPN Fantasy. I guess I don't know if we want to expose the whole league, chat, so maybe we won't quite do that. Okay, wait a second. I think it just needed a second to reset. I guess we can go back on the Wi-Fi when we need to control the channel. We got Bears Saints highlights up next, so maybe we'll mention this as well too. We should pay attention because this will be a good, just continue to see what's going on with the Caleb Williams performances this year. And even if they're ugly, I guess of all the 200-yard games, this will be the one that we'll try to spin positively of all the sub 200-yard games. Okay, chat. Fantasy app is broke in the third quarter of Sunday Night Football. Apparently, it can't keep up. Is it a tight fantasy week? Pause. Is it a lot of people checking in and see what's going on? Okay, here we go, chat. We're loaded up and ready to go. It just needed to reset. So, yeah, Allen on the season, it says he's 5th in our fantasy league. However, it's scored differently, if that matters. And then Drake May is 4th. So, again, it's super close. But he's overtaken him over the last couple of weeks. And Allen has been the guy that has been, I guess, let's see here, MVP conversation. I know Drake May was 4th. Like, do we have to see if he's number 1 now? I don't know if he's number 1. He's number 4 still. So, we got Mahomes, Allen, and Baker above him. Pause. But from, I guess, a fantasy standpoint, just kind of basic stats. And, again, the Bills are still stringing together some wins. They have a good record, even though the Patriots did beat the Bills. Pause. But Allen had that crazy performance in week 1 where he had 300 pass yards. He had 400 overall yards and 4 touchdowns. So, crazy performance. But then after that, 148 yards passing. I guess, 200 overall yards and no touchdowns. He had 230-some yards and 3 touchdowns against Miami. So, that's, still a good overall day. 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, 253 and 2 touchdowns, but 2 turnovers in that game as well, too. And then 2 touchdowns and 2 turnovers against Atlanta, only 180 yards. So Drake May, chat, has, I think, been a little bit more consistent. He didn't have the week 1 performance quite yet that Josh Allen has had, just that outstanding, just that, like, that game of the season type stat game where, again, it's just going to be one of the high-level performances that we've seen. But every game so far, outside of that Pittsburgh game where he had the 2 turnovers, and even in that game, I guess now we're making our case, but he still had 2 touchdowns in that game, so that's the neutralizing effect. But so I guess 1 touchdown and then 1 in the first game as well too. But he was 287 and a touchdown, 230, 268, 203, 273, 261, and 222. And the rushing hasn't quite been, again, as high level scoring wise as well too. But I think his decision making, at least since that Pittsburgh game, is one. I know we have to consider that for his full season, but he is also on a different timeline than Josh Allen. Not to say that Josh Allen is a guy that can't improve as the season goes along. I mean, we're literally seeing it with Mahomes, where Mahomes was really struggling, of course, or really being inconsistent to start the year. And now he has gotten his stats trending in the right direction. And, of course, we're looking at it here now. Number 1 in MVP voting. But Drake May is in his 2nd year. Right, chat? Hey, I already forget what Drake May's in. But year 2 Drake May is just going to be getting better week to week because that's the spot of his career that he's in as well, too. Not because he's just getting his rhythm in the season. It's like, I've been here in September before, what does this really mean? And then all of a sudden, kind of subconsciously, you're taking some time off and maybe your performances are struggling a little bit, or, your off season was just the sort of the mental revved upness that you're ready to go with is different in October than it is, just the different spots that you are in your career. But he's just going to be elevating his play because hopefully that's him just improving as he's in year 2. And the level of decision-making and consistency that he is having against, again, last 2 weeks, New Orleans and Tennessee. Very favorable games to have after a win at Buffalo. Still has 3 games in a row now where he's looked really good. I mean, even the Carolina game as well, too. They killed Carolina, and they probably should have won that Pittsburgh game had it not been for again, Miami and Vegas, shit, that's pretty favorable. They have wins over Vegas, Miami, Carolina, and New Orleans and Tennessee. So, we're leaving Buffalo out there. But the other games are, again, outside of Bryce Young, I guess, non-playoff teams at this point. And again, if Drake May is really trending in a certain direction, then even if Bryce Young was a playoff team, you'd probably still expect Drake May to, at least compete in that matchup. Much less, again, really exceptionally carry the offense, or exceptionally command that game, and they're getting some turnovers and stuff as well too. But the consistency that he again is developing is really, really impressive to see. I guess his MVP odds, of course, like we said, aren't necessarily it's going to be difficult for them to leap these legacy guys, for right now as well too, as he's only in year 2 and continuing to establish that name brand to his game. But again, as just a down-to-down passer, he is really starting to be as good as any of these guys in the league. And he doesn't quite have, the Patriots receiving core is definitely underrated, for sure. I like some sleeper talent, Keyshawn Boutte, again, some guys that are not way up there in the name value ranking. But Drake May is definitely elevating his talent as well, too. And he is starting to get in the conversation where, and this is, obviously MVP, an MVP type talking point. So it's not necessarily to say he's 4th in MVP is not necessarily a hot take here, what I'm about to say, but he is starting to get into that spot where if you switch him out for other quarterbacks in the league, you do feel better about having Drake May in those systems. Like, as good as Jared Goff has been for the Lions this year, and I don't want to just go to sort of the basic draft analysis that you would have with Drake May, where it's like, he's more mobile, so you get that aspect as well too. It's like, decision making matters, and if Jared Goff can just consistently make it, Caleb Williams, we can't just keep bringing him back up, but it's like, okay, you can be mobile if you make bad decisions. Zach Wilson, if you make bad decisions, I guess we'd have to call out a name, but if you make a bad decision while you're mobile, just the mobility is obviously not a good thing at that point. It's just a thing that you're capable of. But if you're able to use it to avoid pressure and then make a good decision out of that, then it is a good thing. But regardless, Drake May, yes, he has the mobility, but his in the pocket passing and his decision making against, even if he's destroying bad teams, it is what it is. That's a level you have to get to on your way to being really great, and that's, at least so far this year, something that we've at least needed to, or a way to prove yourself. Like, nobody else is proving themselves. So if you're out there, laying the smackdown on the bad teams, then hey, maybe we have to take yourself seriously as, are the Patriots going to win the Super Bowl? But are the Patriots going to be one of the playoff teams? Probably. Are the Patriots a team that could get a playoff upset? I guess, maybe even the better question is Drake May a guy that could upset a playoff team? Yeah, for sure. He's a scary guy to face in the playoffs. I guess, chat, hey, as a, if like Colts top level team, if we had to play Drake May in a playoff game, that's legitimately a scary playoff matchup because of Drake May at this point. And again, I don't know how many quarterbacks in the league are individually scary. Obviously Mahomes, I guess we're going to name a bunch now. But, Mahomes, Allen, and again, this kind of goes to this year. Has Baker every year been the scariest quarterback in the league the way Mahomes and Allen are? Obviously not. But with all due respect to Baker. But this year, Baker play-to-play fourth quarter. Like, I am scared of Baker. I guess, we're talking about Drake May comparatively, so, we'll leave him out for right now. But those 3 guys, and then I would still, obviously be scared of Stafford. And just going into the game, it's like, yes, Stafford can go out there and light anybody up. Jared Goff, I would say, would still be scary to have a good performance. And then Lamar, of course, and Dak, and Hurts, and Herbert, all these guys. I'm just scared of good quarterbacks. It is what it is. But I would not be more scared of Dak than Drake May. And I would not be more scared of, I guess, Drake May on the Eagles at this point versus Jalen Hurts. The Eagles offense is definitely, well, I was going to say it's less creative than the Patriots offense, but I don't know if the Patriots offense is also the most creative offense. So I don't know why Hurts is necessarily 33 to MVP. I guess you got to win by the Vikings by more, I guess, to make people happy. And Dak is doing a lot on the Cowboys. We got to give him credit. But saying, like, Love 25-1 is a little bit too dramatic for Hurts at 33-1. At this point, he was good today as well, too. Though he might have had a late play that was tough. Maybe we got to cue those highlights up next. We haven't watched those highlights at this point. And speaking of passing the torch, chat, McCaffrey, 103 rush yards today, 150 yards from scrimmage. Bijan's going to get his 100, and he got his touchdown. But McCaffrey's not passing no torch, chat. He said, I'm still the best running back in the league. I don't know. Bijan's having a historic year, so it's going to, end of the year. He might win that title back, Bijan. But at least in the individual game, in the head-to-head, pause, maybe McCaffrey will have that, be able to go back and win the argument with at that point. But I guess, like we're saying, the point is, outside of Mahomes and Allen and Lamar at this point, there is not another quarterback that I would definitely take over Drake May. There's a lot of quarterbacks that, I could settle into, taking Drake, like Stafford. Okay, yeah, sure. Like we're saying, we could just rename the list again. But at this point, he is comfortably continuing to prove his spot in these FanDuel odds. So maybe the Packers will prove that, FanDuel correctly has them at the best team in the NFC over the course of the season here, especially if Parsons is closing out fourth quarters the way that he was there. But yeah, Drake May is legitimately turning into one of the scariest quarterbacks in the league. And I think the way, like we've said before, but the way that he takes some of the easier stuff, is different than a lot of the guys that were it's different than the Lamar, Allen, Mahomes class. Those guys are so dynamic that they're just, again, they're chucking it around the field. They're creating with their legs. And I guess, Drake May is doing that to some point. As well, and, Mahomes to Kelsey underneath. Ayo, like, is that never, was that ever a play that they ever ran? That was the thing that got him to a Super Bowl. But, with Tyreek Hill as well, too, there was that, they were their most fun, of course, at that vertical element. But speaking of Goff, it is, it's like that Goff decision making, but a little bit of the Stafford arm as well, too. Maybe not quite the cannon that Stafford has, but a little bit of the Stafford kind of arm versatility with the Goff decision making, with a little bit of extra mobility in there as well, too. I don't know if, who we're allowed to compare his mobility to there at that point. But, and, I don't know if we have because Josh Allen, obviously a good runner, but a powerful runner, and Drake May more of like a sideline against scrambler if he needs to be, I would say. But also can, he'll I guess he will seek out contact for sure, but I don't know if I see him being a consistent Josh Allen type of, like, they'll be running QB runs for him all the time in year 6. Like, maybe, but I just see him developing into potentially such a good passer that could just become a very reliable thing. But, maybe I'm just overhyping it and hoping that, again, the fantasy stuff really pans out for us well this year, and we're able to manage that 2 QB system that we have right now for our fantasy team. That we're able to get those week-to-week lineups right. That's our only concern right now at that spot. But their defense, I guess, 8th in points allowed, is silently playing better this year as well, too, than, maybe it's getting credit for. But yeah, chat, PFF has him graded out as the 5th best quarterback in the league. And I don't even know if that's taking into account the fact that he lit up the Titans today and was, like, almost perfect. What were these stats, chat? I know we were just looking at his fantasy total, but in terms of the actual completion attempts, we had him at 21 for 23. Unbelievable. Cam Ward, I guess Cam Ward did have a better day today. 25 for 34, 255, a touchdown and a pick, and we're getting somewhere, chat. We're getting somewhere. Shout out. 5 sacks. It might take a season to get adjusted. I guess it will. It will. It has been taking a season to get adjusted. But he might adjust. It is what it is. And, with the way Drake May settling in, I guess, he had a little bit of maybe a little better start than Cam Ward did. But I think, our hot take is, it's not even a hot take. PFF beat us there, chat. Pause. Because they had this grade up before we just said that. So, unless they heard us say that and they were like, real quick, is PFF in the chat? Did they update their rankings? But also, like we're saying, FanDuel's got him 4th in MVP voting. So, it's more those narratives, like we're saying, balancing out with the true player. I guess, today's the day of the confidence rankings, I guess, like we've mentioned with the teams. But with those true player confidence rankings, like I'm saying, I would legitimately, what does that say? Us sitting here on the couch, talk about how we build a team. But, if we're in some sort of random redraft situation, that they're letting the fans run the league now, our team that we're running, we're going to have Drake May really high up on that list in the QBs. And like I said, outside of those top 3 guys, the big 3 for the QBs right now, is he the number 1? So I guess like the big 3 might have to go into sort of their own legacy category at this point. So that's like a number one sort of QB belt right now that I think he has. And again, Baker, I guess, is hovering in a weird spot where, what's the future? Is it like, are we valuing 10 years here? Are we valuing just, if we try to win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years, can Baker win one in the next 3 to 4 versus Drake May winning one in the next 10? Like, what's more likely? Again, if it at the end of the day to get one in the next 10, would you rather have a 4-year window with Baker to really get to? Yeah, I think you get what we're saying. But regardless, he's just obviously lighting up these bad teams. So they do have Cleveland, Atlanta, Tampa. Week 10 is going to be fun. That Cleveland defense, Atlanta, they will be at home for. The Patriots will be at home for that one. So, I could see that being a win. We do have Atlanta with only 10 points tonight, and Penix just hasn't quite found the rhythm. Again, it's a little bit of him just getting ready to get going. And yeah, he just almost threw a pick on an out round there, Chad. I think not finding rhythm, maybe a little bit nice there for the second half stuff. But yeah, shout out again. Can't speak highly enough. He has of Drake May. He has pause. What's happening, Chad? Who are we speaking highly of and whatever? But yeah, he has been the real, obviously, narrative riser of the season so far, and it's been obviously fun to watch his emergence. We'll see if he has the same sort of history with the Colts. Hey, yo, chat. But does this set us up for Arch Manning? Is Arch Manning going to go in there and, get taken down by Drake May in the playoffs every year? That would be unfortunate. Is it going to be Nussmeier? Chat. We got to do our mock draft check. Mendoza? I guess the Colts aren't going to take a quarterback for 32nd right now in the mock draft, just based on regular season. But that would be Carson Beck on the board. Ty Simpson on the board? Huh. Quarterbacks always get overdrafted, chat. So we got to get that 5th-year option, right? What do they have here? Oh, Drew Shelton tackle. Hey, yo, I was like, Garrett Nussmeier, 64th. Okay. So that would be decent value, though. Honestly, I don't know. We'd have to rewatch some of Nussmeier's highlights. We haven't been keeping up. But is he more of a, do we trade up if he starts to fall into the 3rd type of ordeal? Yeah, we've got 96 right now, according to this. But, yeah, Chet, Ty Simpson, I almost wonder if I would rather take Ty Simpson at 32, I think, than Garrett Nussmeier at 64. Trade value, all that, pick value, all that stuff. I would just rather take that swing in that first-round spot there. Even, over material. I would honestly, at AO, I don't know, quick draft corner, is Ty Simpson number 1 on our board right now? I don't know. Maybe we're mixing college and NFL brain there, or just need to continue to watch more Mendoza and Dante Moore. But, yeah, shout out. That would be a potential fun move there. So, yeah, shout out again to Drake May for playing as well as he has. But 6 minutes left, I guess 7 minutes about left in the 4th quarter, as the Niners still have a 3-point lead. 1st and 10. Okay, they're moving past midfield. We're locking back in. Oh, are we watching the Giants Broncos highlights again? We said we were going to watch the Eagles Vikings highlights next. Oh, wait, we got to reconnect to the Wi-Fi. That's why we haven't been keeping up, chat, because we were off the Wi-Fi there for a second. So let's get back on and see what we have here. And we said Eagles Vikings. We remember, chat. Do they have it posted? We might actually have to go into the channel and see what's going on, chat. Hey, yo, give us a second. We'll be there quickly and find the right game. But I think otherwise, we have basically mentioned everything. Washington versus Dallas is tough because Mariota did leave the game. So I don't remember exactly what the score was when he left the game, and if it was a, if it was like, they would have won the game. I don't think it was quite that. So, that's also a little bit unfortunate for Washington as well, too, But the game is definitely skewed by the fact that they had to go to their backup. So, not to say that Mariota hasn't been good as well, too, But wait, Chad, did they just repost all the games on here? Oh, no, they reposted historical games for, I guess just the Colts Chargers just played today. So I don't know. Did they repost that game because of the game today? They must have, chat. They must have. And I don't know if this is one that we want to revisit. If it's regular season, maybe. If it's playoffs, Colts Chargers from the Manning era, then definitely not. But hey, yo, chat, where's just the row of videos that you posted? Okay, here we go. Videos. There's not just a playlist option where I can find the game playlist. I think it'd be a little easier to find on mobile, of course, but we can scroll back and find this Eagles-Vikings highlights. There it is, chat. We're a lot of work to watch Carson Wentz there. Mac Jones scrambling. I guess that's probably why, because it's either Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, Michael Penix. It's kind of all the same thing, chat. I don't know. But here, let's update, I guess, the Michael Penix night. Is he the one that we're more curious on than Mac Jones? I mean, you know, we know what Mac Jones is in the Niners offense. I mean, maybe we need to see what it is in the playoffs. Is it something extra that could get unlocked for this team? I don't know. But, you know, we know Shanahan can get these guys to produce and that Mac Jones can still have a good game as well. But for Penix, 20 for 31, 120. Hey, yo, chat. Take two. 20 for 31, 223, and a touchdown. 2 sacks on the night as well. So, again, okay. I guess he's out playing Mac Jones a little bit. Jones does have the bobble interception that's not really on him. And he also has McCaffrey just tearing it up on the ground. Though McCaffrey's longest of 15, though the average is obviously pretty high. You know, getting through the... And probably credit to the Niners line. I say probably because we've been, you know, catching up on the other games as well, too. Obviously, check the tapes. But, you know, they've definitely been giving him space. Oh, no, the shiftiness right there, Chet. That's all McCaffrey. I take it back. At least that play for 3 yards was him juking like 2 guys and a little cut-up field. So, wait a second. Back to Eagles-Vikings, because that's the highlights we have on right now. A.J. Brown, I think, had a little bit of a better day. Then he did find the end zone. I guess I don't know how many yards he ended up having. Let's see here. Whoa, Chad, I was right. He had 221 and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 183 and 1. So Saquon, you know, still having the season where you're like, what's going on there from the stats? But yeah, Hurts, Chad, 326 and 3 touchdowns, no picks. The receivers can get to a spot where they're like, yeah, we are having great days. I mean, how is he 33-1 at MVP? Philly 5-2. We must have to like double check the schedule and see what games are ahead and if it's going to get really difficult in terms of, you know, projecting them to continue to produce at a high level stats and all that different stuff. But regardless, this is as good of a stats game as he's had in a while as well. He's another one. Like, we were going back and checking Kyler's, you know, high-end level numbers. I'm sure that Jalen Hurts has had a couple of good stats games in there besides this one. But this is definitely the highest numbers it feels like he has put up in a while. And against Flores's defense, that is definitely not a small task, that's for sure. 2.5 minutes, 1st and goal. We'll see if San Francisco is able to go up 2 scores here and get this one looking like it could be in a good spot. Pause. But, hey, yo, wait, we're on Jalen Hurts' page, which is the one that we want here. So, yeah, he has had 283 against New York in that loss, 280 against Denver. So you see the passing start to, at least the stats start to trend in the right direction. That's right, they're off of the 2 losses there. So, again, been 10 days for them as well, too, since the Giants, they probably needed the reset just to get the refocus, even though it's not necessarily, you know, a bye week or anything like that. But 326 back in 2021, and then 387 as well, too, back-to-back weeks, 333, 340 early in the season in 2022. 2023, he had 319, 303, and then I guess we're not paying attention to the rest of the stats. 319 and 4 touchdowns, 76%. This could be his best game. I guess, do we go QB rating here? I think that's like the earliest we remember to sort that in the research here, chat, live on the pod. So Pittsburgh 2022, Philly versus Pittsburgh. They won 35-13. He was 285 and 4 touchdowns. 67% completion. So why was that higher, chat? Ayo, did he fumble? In this one, he had 2 sacks. He did fumble. Okay, so that brought his QB rating down a little bit because this one he had 76, higher completion percentage, higher yards, same amount of touchdowns. But, more attempts as well, too. So, yeah, 38 attempts to 28 attempts against that Pittsburgh in 2022. But I guess 1 game per year, that's really elite in the rating. And then in 2024 against Cincy, he was 80%. Oh, chat, they did get in the end zone. Shout out San Francisco. McCaffrey once again. So, yeah, he's feeling it tonight. It is definitely a point of pride for him to maintain, that top running back spot in the league, I guess, after a good performance in this one. And we'll see if Bijan, I guess, has a chance to put a couple scores on the board. If he just rips off the best run of all time here and just jukes out the whole defense, I mean, we can't put it past him. He's an athlete. He's capable of some crazy things. Against Tennessee in 2022, Hurts had 39 attempts, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. This one kind of feels like what he had today. Pause. In terms of stats, 23 passes, so definitely more volume in this one. And I guess, what was his rating today as well? Let's double check that and see what it was. I mean, it could have been perfect. He only had 4 incompletions. 4 incompletions, 320 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It's got to be over. I guess 140 was the mark. So, I mean, is it got to be over 145? Just looking at those stats alone, there's no way it's worse than the top one he had. Similar amount of attempts as well. So, Eagles, Vikings. Hurts is QB rating was perfect rating today, chat. 158.3. So, yeah, this was statistically the best game he's ever played in his career. Shout out. Could not have happened at a better time, chat. He needed it to win the fan base back, the confidence, just, reinvigorate everybody's hope in Philly. And not to say that I guess one performance, they'll be out next time he doesn't have, a perfect QB rating. If he has one of the a little bit more of a, I need to command the team type of games. But still, that type of answer the bell performance in the regular season, and they've had the times in the regular season as well over the last couple of years where they've dipped down and then reemerged. But yeah, this was very encouraging for the Eagles to continue to be top AFC or NFC contender. Sorry, but Addison 9 for 128 has been incredible since he has started to emerge back as well too. So, McCarthy hasn't had the chance to play with Addison and Jefferson both on the field at the same time yet. So if we see McCarthy again this year, then maybe him in a different version of the offense. It'll just be fun to continue to see him with more weapons versus, maybe having to force feed Jefferson or something like that, especially without maybe a consistent run game. Shout out Mason. You've been trying to get him going. He's not producing well, but he hasn't been necessarily a elite top tier running back in the league. Then, maybe the extra receiving weapons and more quick options, more creating space is better for what you want to do when you bring McCarthy back. So I don't know if he's going to be in the starting spot. I guess we have to go back and double check what the timetable for recovery for that injury is. And they have Carson Wentz under Bo Nix. Pause at this point as well too. 31 out of 38. Addison 74th receiver in the league. Mason they have 25th out of 49th running back. So kind of in the middle, but not necessarily, maybe third and, second and 8. I guess he can, make a play at any point. We're not going to just start running out a scenario where it's like, he's never going to make a play in that time. But, maybe a little bit more just consistency every now and then to mix it up and, keep the defense honest more so than it is being like a explosive, real part of the offense, if that makes sense. But yeah, Hurts, chat. We might double down. Is Hurts at 33-1 better MVP odds than we got him at last time? It might be. We might double down just to see if they go up at some point as well. Because I think he could leap Dak and Lamar. Shout out. We love Lamar. And again, he might just be an MVP value because of what the team looked like without him. But I don't know if that season's going to turn around necessarily. We'll have to see, obviously, with the schedule easing up, how they look out of the bye week. But yeah, Philly, for the most part, cruising to a win today in Minnesota, 5-2, still looking good. And let's see the Dylan Gabriel stats. Was Dylan Gabriel the one in this game? Hey, yo, if there was a game that, on the trip, it's like, okay, this game's in the red zone, maybe we can focus on what's going on. Maybe we'll talk to the people in the car. It's like, it's the game when Dolphins-Browns are on. So 13 for 18, only 116 yards, and no touchdowns, interceptions. But yeah, Tua had 3 picks, so short fields all over the place. Quinn Ewers. We saw Quinn Ewers, chat. Uh-oh. Maybe we see a little... Is Sark? Do we see Sark there next week as well, too? We might. Hey, yeah, with the way the Texas thing is going, this might be a Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian reunion in Miami next week. Mike McDaniels might get traded for Steve Sarkisian. Is that even allowed? I'm not sure. Maybe more theoretical. But Judkins, like a hiring both ways. I don't know. But we got Tua, just giving Judkins 3 touchdowns. I don't know if he sixed him 3 times or got set up. Right? Yeah, obviously not. But 3 touchdowns for him. Capitalizing off of those, just in general as a team, off of those 2 turnovers. And they did run one back as well, too, Tyson Campbell, with a pick 6. So that was the trade that was that just this week that they made the trade? Campbell from the Jags and Newsome to the Newsome to the Jags and Campbell from the Jags to the Browns. Yeah, we said that wrong. But I don't know what the pick swap situation was in there. Let's see if it's on the Pro Football Reference already. I don't know how long it'll take them to add trade information, put them to the test here, and see what we've got going on. So, they did play 1 game already for Cleveland. So, I guess this was last week then that this trade officially went down. But I thought Newsome made a couple plays in that game as well, too. Again, we have to go back and check the tape and see if he just got toasted a bunch of times as well, too, and made up for the plays that he did make. But I thought he had a couple of good tackles. Seemed like a good energy guy to bring in. So traded so that was Campbell in a 7th for Newsome in a 6. So yeah, basically a player swap. Barely trading the picks there in that one. But yeah, just change of scenery, different types of guys. I maybe need to watch a little bit more of them to know exactly what their specific skill set games are. But yeah, I like the fact that there was at least some contributing moments for both of them, even though, if it was a little bit more meaningful for the Campbell Browns performance in this one. But yeah, at least Gabriel, again, with the vibes and the potential looming, just Shedeur Sanders there. And it's not even, is he nervous and playing poorly because he's worried about Shedeur taking a spot? It's just more like, are the coaches waiting for the one little thing that they need to see to pull him out and pause and put Shedeur in? And, again, he's not saying he's playing perfect at this point, but at least in this one, they were able to win so decisively. And, they looked comfortable enough over the last couple of weeks that it seems like the better option moving forward, obviously over Flacco. Flacco's gone. But, at least it seemed to be working a little bit, this type of QB switch. And, do you want to try to, is Cleveland not trying to make the playoffs anymore? But I don't know if they're necessarily going to be, trying to win as many games as possible. But you do need to get a win over Miami, just for the vibe standpoint. Just for the Browns to be there are franchises that are, I don't know if they're in worse spots than us, but at least having worse seasons, more bummer seasons than we're having at this point as well. But yeah, shout out for the decisive win there. And, shout out for the Quinn Ewers era in Miami. We might see that one. Kansas City, crazy win over the Raiders. The Raiders are also in the Dolphins level. The Raiders and the Dolphins maybe have become, and the Jets, the 3 most depressing teams in the league. I don't know if, the Titans, just because Cam Ward, we'd have to get to year 2 before we really start to be like, oh, this might be a trend, more so than it is just a bad situation. The Saints have the opportunity to reset the franchise with the quarterback. I guess so do the Jets, but in the Saints, not to say that the Saints have better franchise hope than the Jets. Penix takes a hit while he is trying to make a pass in the pocket. So you love the, of course, ability to stand in there, but I don't know if it was the most accurate pass. Oh, wait a second. Did it get picked off? Did they call that a fumble? Hey, yo. We just saw him getting on the replay. I guess maybe us thinking that it was an incomplete shows that it was a, I don't know. I guess I'm not reading the closed caption enough to know exactly what's happening here. Oh, here we go. So here's a replay again, and Penix on the drop back. Was the arm going forward? He's stepping up. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it paused. It's released enough like a pass to make me think that it's going forward. But I guess the actual arm, yeah, it shut that out. The hand's going forward. It really is more an affected throw than it is a fumble, because he does get in on the elbow, and I think maybe the football taps the helmet or something at some point there. But it's just more so of, yeah, I think he hit his hand on the helmet because they show him holding his finger there. So it's more of just the pass again being a affected pass than it is a fumble. Or even, again, sometimes it gets knocked out, but it's just like his hand was going forward. It felt like he still had control of that. It was just a weaker throw because the defender took away some of the power there with the contact. But otherwise, we've got the Thursday night game we could run the highlights for real quick if we needed to queue up some of the highlights. Was there any other games that we missed that we needed to mention as well? I think we kind of said everything. And we do have the 2-minute warning-ish approaching here in the game. So I know that, Atlanta's going to need to score here to keep this interesting, but it does give us time to finally focus on the Sunday Night Football game. Hey, yo, not finally, but, turn our attention to and lock in for a final drive, goal, final place. So, yeah, they do give the ball back to Atlanta, of course, or, let Atlanta keep it. Hey, yo, it will be 2nd and 10 on the 40.5. So they are getting closer to field goal range if they have to go that way, because 10 points, you are going to need to score twice, even though, onside kick is looking a little unlikely as well, too. Just 2025. I don't know if you have time to make a stop and let the defense try to get you the ball back. Penix, you can't take the sack. You can't fumble either, so he's going to take the sack, unfortunately. There's a flag. Are they saved by the flag, chat? Hey, yo. We'll see what the refs call. I didn't see anything in the sack that looked crazy in terms of contact, but maybe there is something in the wrap-up now. You never know. You can't tackle a quarterback high. You can't tackle him low. So if the quarterback gets up slow, then I think, they have a penalty in the kicking that's illegal contact on the corner. Lenore. So it's not on the defensive line on the rush there. But, regardless, the point that I'm about to make still stands. They need to have a penalty, because they have the one for the special teams called leaping. That is just a bad penalty. But they need to have one for the quarterbacks now. Instead of roughing the passer, they should just call it limping. It's like if the play results in the quarterback having a limp, it's just a 15-yard penalty. If the quarterback is holding his ribs or holding any body part, but pause. If he's holding anything in injury, again, but if he's making an injury, if he's making a pain face, then 15-yard penalty. It doesn't matter. Limping on the defense, automatic first down. It really should probably be a point. Every time they get a roughing the passer penalty, the team gets a half a point. So Atlanta should be at 10.5 points at this point. Maybe just 11 to 20. If they get 2 points, then it's a touchdown game. So yeah, 2 points for every roughing the passer penalty. And now they could score on this drive and tie it up. So if the league wants to address that rule change in the next competition meeting, I think it'd be a smart idea. I don't know if we're breaking news, inside sources, probably stuff we're not allowed to say, honestly. But minute 44 left. Penix has not had a chance to have a clean throw here for a second. And I guess to go back to the stats of that game, because we don't need to check the Chiefs. 4-3, they're right back on track. Mahomes is cooking. he's going to win another MVP. I don't know what that means for the Chiefs' success, but shout out. The run continues. We're not necessarily saying we're, the Chiefs, they're, we're ready for this run to be over. Like, we don't want to see them be successful. Obviously, Chad, check the tapes. We're pro Chiefs. It's just another day in the neighborhood taking care of business against a divisional opponent. So not only a team with a poor record that they should win against, and the Chiefs starting to look better, but again, divisional opponent, AFC West, they handle their business against their rival teams. They've dominated. It seems like they're continuing to do that this year as the regular season record trends back in the right direction. But yeah, the first shutout, though, they said, in Andy Reid's career, which is kind of crazy, though, of course, an offensive coach. So it's not like comparing him to Belichick. Oh, Belichick got the shutout. Like, he's a defensive coach. So, has Andy Reid had a higher point total than Belichick? Though Belichick, of course, had probably the best. Did Belichick also have the best offensive all time in 2007? Maybe arguably the best 1-2 combo. Pause. You got, well, now he's got the best 1-2 combo. Ayo. But, back in the day, it was Moss and Brady. That was his 1-2 combo. Pause. So, obviously Rice and Montana's actually the number one. But, if we actually made it be drafted, then it would be Moss and Brady probably. So, however you want to rank it. But 4th and 10, Atlanta, Penix fires just right into the ground. So, minute 27, no flag to save the Falcons' drive this time. And with only 2 timeouts, the San Francisco 49ers, with a 2-possession lead as well, too, can take this one for the win. So, welcome. Chad, I guess if it's your first time, welcome to the REMINGTOM pod. Thank you for jumping on with us tonight. And for the OGs, the ones that always hang out, of course, thank you guys for hanging out as well, too. And we will be here, like I said, chat, this week, of course, because, we do. But also, we're just excited to have the NBA back. And the basketball regular season starting this week, Tuesday night, instead of, whatever random things we'd be doing on a Tuesday night. McCaffrey scrambling for the first down, trying to continue to steal the game, pushing the stat padding at this point, but in an important way, I guess, to close it out. 24 for 129, 2 touchdowns, 7 for 72, and just proven that he is a special player on a different level from a stat standpoint. But, NBA is returning this week. We'll be here live. NBA opening night, of course, to follow along with the games and just lock in and get ready for basketball, chat. It's going to be fun. I guess we'll have a couple of Monday night games, important Monday night games, in the books at that point. So, stay tuned as well, too, because those are going to be fun ones, and we're definitely going to want to talk about those after they happen and during those Tuesday night games. So, be back Tuesday night for NBA opening night. It's going to be fun. I guess now the NBA opening night is here. Going forward, this is the best, chat. Hey, we're going to have basketball on the live streams. It'll be in the background. We'll be here during we're in NBA season now. This is the prime time REMINGTOM pod. The REMINGTOM pod was built for NBA season. So this is what, everything is just killing time to get to NBA season. And now we can lock in, follow games, have a great time hanging out like we always do here on the YouTube. Of course, you can find us on the podcast feeds as well, too. So, old school chat. We're on Spotify, app, all the different things. You can find us out there as well. San Francisco taking knees. McCaffrey's going to get both game balls, chat. Pause. The rushing and the receiving performance. I guess defensively, we've got Bryce Huff, 5 tackles, a sack. I guess they've given him the tackle for the loss and the sack as the same. We got a defender, number 91, with the sack as well, too. And then Alfred Collins with the fumble recovery as well. So maybe Alfred Collins. No picks tonight, but it would be McCaffrey and Bryce. I guess Bethune with a tackle for a loss, 10 tackles. Has to be in the mix. But, yeah, shout out. The kicker, probably not as well, too. Little low-key game from him. But, yeah, chat, shout out. Thanks for jumping on. Of course, we were just glad we were able to actually jump on for an NFL Sunday and make it for our normal. Try to keep the schedule somewhat live. I know normally, like next Sunday, normally we go live during that late window, and we'll watch Sunday night game on our own. But yeah, this week, fun to be able to jump on and react afterwards and hang out during SNF. So thank you guys for jumping on with us. We're gonna take off, chat, because like I said, we've been traveling all day. Settle back in. Get ready for the week ahead. Be back Tuesday night. NBA started. Enjoy your Monday Night Football tomorrow night. Enjoy, the rest of the week. Whenever we see you guys again,